This magical story happened on January 31st, in the year 512 of the Feline calendar. Seneca, a beautiful and thriving capital, on a day that would go down in history, a young girl lost everything. She met her end after being killed by a powerful and beautiful witch named Bella. The witch had saved her when she was just a kid, and she'd become part of her family, always kind to the girl. After that horrible tragedy, Bella blamed herself for everything and decided to give Elaine her heart so she could live. Bella's tears, those were the girl's last memories. That's when the witch asked her to protect her child, Rehei. 20 years later, thinking she was dead, Elaine woke up with white hair. That's when it hit her. Bella, Rehei, her whole family was gone. She'd lost everything. However, there was still him, the one person she had to keep her existence a secret from. Rehei, her one and only Rehei. This time she'll protect him, no matter what. Bella's one and only, and her precious Rehei. Since Bella's last wishes had to be honored, Elaine pledged her loyalty to Rehei. She swore to God, promising to protect him, to find Bella, even if it meant risking her own damn life. Back when she was a kid, her stepmom left Elaine alone under a tree, promising she'd be back with her dad. She could do it, easy. All she had to do was sit and wait for them to come back. An hour went by, then two. Elaine waited half the day, but her stepmom never came back. Just like that, she was alone. A year later, when she was 9, she was wandering the streets, living the usual life of a stray, just trying to find food. Seeing the hungry little girl at her stall, the kind woman knew she was starving. The poor kid wanted to eat some raspberries and buy bread later with the money she made. Worried about the girl, the woman gave her a bunch of day-old bread and reminded her that there were monsters in the woods. No matter what, Elaine was allowed to come here if she ever got hungry, but they told her to stay away from this place if she could, because they sold bread here. Compared to that day a year ago, when her stepmother ditched her, Elaine didn't even have enough for a ride home. Everyone just walked right past her, like she wasn't even there. This little aristocrat was gonna have to survive on the streets. The whole time, she was haunted by the cold and the hunger, and the street kids were always messing with her. And the random violence, because back then, things were super rough on little girls. The urgent notice on the bulletin board was her only hope that her adoptive mom and dad were looking for her. Even if her real mom was dead, Elaine was still her dad's kid. She was his family, after all. Her hopes were answered. There was an announcement on the board from the Crystalia family, but it wasn't what she wanted to see. Her family was celebrating the birth of a son. But this news? It helped Elaine adapt to this messed up life. I mean, her stepmom was straight up greedy, ditching her out of fear she'd steal her own kid's spotlight. Searching for a place to crash, the girl stumbled upon an empty, unclaimed spot, meaning she could sleep there tonight. Plus, she had bread. It was her luckiest day, until the luck just ran out. For the rest of the time, crippled and terrified, Elaine hid in the forest from the guy who attacked her. She knew if that dude caught her, she wouldn't have a single chance of survival. Crushed by her fate, the little girl didn't get what she did wrong to make her life like this. She kept telling herself that, until she pulled herself together and decided she had to get the hell out of there. Realizing it had gotten quiet around her, the brave girl figured the killer was gone, and she bolted. But even being careful, fate made sure she came face to face with a bloodthirsty monster. Elaine got it, whether it was that guy or this monster. She couldn't escape dying by its hands. Staring death in the face, the kid made a wish. In her next life, she wanted to be born into a loving family. At that fateful moment, as if by God's will, the witch used her powers to shield the girl from death's clutches. That monster Elaine was so scared of was destroyed by this woman with kind eyes. Her name was Bella. It was their first meeting, but the girl was way too weak to thank her savior back then. Saving our little hero from death was like rebirth into a life completely different than before. Even the next morning, her subconscious wouldn't let her wake up, tormenting her with brutal memories of the monster and her parents. When that damn monster got so close she could feel its breath, Elaine begged for help. Opening her eyes and seeing a white room around her, the girl knew it had definitely been a nightmare. But the place she found herself in was totally unfamiliar to her. This wood-paneled room and that calming scent, it felt like she'd been here before. Suddenly, hearing footsteps coming closer, the girl pretended to still be asleep, terrified of what was coming. The kind voice was Bella's. She'd used her powers out in the open because that monster almost ate the kid. She came to check on the girl, but she was going to decide what to do with her after she woke up. According to the master, there's nothing to think about, seeing as the little brat saw the mistress use her power. Knowing what usually happens after that, Bella insisted the kid was human, and not all humans are bad. Either way, the master was furious about what happened and couldn't accept a human child. Luckily, the sorceress didn't have to wake anyone up. The injured girl woke up on her own. Happy that her fever finally broke, Mistress Bella decided to find out how the girl was feeling. This person's true identity is a blue flame. There are tons of stories about them, legends that are hundreds of thousands of years old. Some say she was around way before Feline was even a thing, a straight-up witch. Elaine had seen this woman's crazy powers before, so it wasn't hard to figure out she was a witch. If people want to call her a witch, then she was totally cool with owning that title. When the kid asked her real name, Bella smirked. Nobody had asked her that before. They got to know each other better, but now it was clear Elaine had nowhere to go. She'd been wandering the streets, just trying to survive and not starve to death. So, since she had nowhere to go back to, Bella was cool enough to offer her a place to stay. The girl was thinking, like, a witch probably wouldn't save her just to do something shady, right? So, with no other choice, the little hero stayed in that beautiful place with Bella. Since she had no place to go back to, she agreed to stay with her. But there's something that's bugging her. The girl was worried the madam's husband didn't like her. But he's Bella's friend. They're gonna get along, especially since Esme's a demon. As Elaine climbed up the steep riverbank, she figured all demons just naturally hated humans. She tripped and almost ate dirt. If that scary-looking demon hadn't caught her. Seeing him so close, the kid was totally speechless, but managed to thank him anyway. Without a word, the guy turned to leave, but the girl chased after him, asking for a second. He stopped dead, guessing Bella had already spilled the beans about what he was. If that's the case, then she should know he's against her being here. Since there was nothing more to say, Esme just came out with it. The kid had to leave. Figuring it was because she was human, the girl let him know Bella had told her a lot. That used to be the case, but not anymore. Esme just can't stand the thought of living under the same roof as her. If he hated people, he wouldn't have saved her. So if it's not that, Bella's holding something back. The boss thought it was way too suspicious to stick around them, especially with Bella being so friendly with the kid. The witch had been living alone for so long, she knew what loneliness tasted like, which is why she offered the little girl to stay. Plus, she actually found the strength to take in a human, even though she never let them get close before. Sure, some people are all right, but once, the only person Bella ever loved betrayed her. The guy she trusted fooled her. He slipped her poison, and she started coughing up blood, all for eternal life. They believed drinking a witch's blood gave you immortality. Back then, those cursed people believed it, and they wounded Bella to drink her blood. And despite her messed up past, the witch still brought a human child into her home. Esme couldn't stand seeing Bella suffer anymore. That's the real reason he hates that kid. Okay, now Elaine gets why Esme doesn't trust her. He must really care about Bella. It seemed like the only option was to leave them, but the girl still wanted to stay with Bella. The witch saved her at the absolute worst point in her life. She was the only one who reached out. Elaine had never felt warmth like that before, and Bella made her want to live again, showing her what love is. She saved her from death, genuinely worried about her well-being, and smiled at her so sweetly. That's why the girl decided she'd pay her back too, so she could see her smile. Knowing she'd be stubborn about it, the demon has no choice but to just let it go. But if that girl hurts Bella, bloodthirsty Esme will get rid of her, pronto. Right now, though, Elaine's more interested in how he got so damn close to her when she was falling. They barely had a chance to talk things through, when suddenly, a gorgeous witch emerged from the trees. Overjoyed, the girl rushed to hug her, explaining that Esme had let her live there, and now she was doing great. Looks like they just leveled up their relationship. After that, Bella taught the girl fencing, convinced that Elaine would soon become a master. They also traveled the country, and in their 5th year with Bella, they ran into someone. The first prince and heir apparent of the Feline kingdom, Lloyd Feline. Bella and Lloyd fell head over heels for each other, and soon after, they had a beautiful son, Rehei Feline. Every day was like a fairy tale. Elaine prayed these days would last forever, but her dream wasn't meant to be. Years later, the kingdom of Feline was deep in debate about what to get Rehei as a gift. Lloyd's son's birthday is in a month, but he hasn't mentioned that he's already finished the party preparations. Bella was pissed he kept everything a secret, especially since she wanted to help out with the cooking. The master brushed it off, saying he wanted to surprise her, then suddenly changed the subject to the gorgeous necklace she was wearing. It's a gift from His Imperial Majesty. Missing his son so much, he gifted it to the lady. To say the prince was surprised his father gifted Bella something like that would be an understatement. Just then, the butler walked in, announcing that His Majesty was expected soon. The council was about to start, so Lloyd promised to be back closer to lunch, so he and Rehei could eat together. Meanwhile, the blacksmith was looking at the precious materials. He'd never seen anyone catch a saliva before. It wasn't too hard for 20-year-old Elaine. She prepared it as a gift for Rehei. Come to think of it, the crown prince is 3 years old. Time flies anyway. The master needs to get to work. Since the girl brought such great ingredients, he promised to be done in a month, which would be perfect timing. She was heading back to the capital. She hadn't been home for a solid 10 days while she was out catching saliva. All she wanted was to see Rehei's face, hoping he'd be happy to see her. When they met, the little guy was all about the gift, and Elaine promised to get him anything he wanted. Now that he could ask for anything, Rehei didn't hesitate. He chose a warrior's sword as his gift. Elaine can't give him that sword right now, because Reheister's too little, and he understood that. Feeling all warm and fuzzy about her brother, the girl was totally looking forward to that day. After lunch, Lloyd still hadn't shown up, and Bella was getting worried about him being so late. Just then, there was a knock at the door. A maid asked permission to come in and talk. The girl was hesitant to answer if Lloyd had arrived, because for some reason, there was no council meeting today. She also asked the other maids. Everyone present saw them being led to the central building, to the altar. Thinking about it, Bella realized this place only gets used for holidays. After asking a servant to watch Rehei, she promised to find her dad and be right back. On the way, it was hard to believe how strong the dark energy felt. The further Bella went, the stronger it got. Assuming this was a secret location, she couldn't figure out where the energy was even coming from. A sinister aura followed her every step, growing stronger with each stride. The scent of dark energy led her to a horrifying place, where Bella saw something seriously messed up happening. In that instant, a bunch of questions flooded her mind. What is this place? Who are these people? What's going on? She had no clue, but what made her lose it was Lloyd. The sight of his bloody, lifeless body stunned her silent. That evening, the crows were super loud. Elaine knew that was a sign something was wrong. Bent over her husband's body, a distraught Bella couldn't believe her husband was lying right there. Her hands, trembling with fear, reached out and touched his cold body, trying to figure out why he was lying there. Lloyd's death, especially so sudden and unexplained, tore a hole in the madam's heart. All she wanted was for him to wake up. The Emperor was the one who grieved the most. Lloyd's blood was on his hands. He owned his heart. The realization that the Emperor killed his own son sent Bella into a complete meltdown. She was crying and screaming, totally horrified. Suddenly, she went silent, hearing bizarre voices in her head. Everything around her was blurring her mind. A terrifying voice in her head kept telling her to open her eyes, mentioning the one who ripped out the heart. Trying to block out the voice, Bella noticed her necklace floating up and glowing with a red light. She'd seen this before. Offering a sacrifice? You can curse someone. It's the dragon's eye. Realizing the Emperor didn't give her the necklace with good intentions, the Madame decided to take it off immediately. But she can't remove the necklace now that the curse is already cast. He's going to control her body. This curse is seriously messed up, forged with Lloyd's blood. So the Emperor wants us to obey him for Lloyd's sake. But Bella's lost it. She's freaking out, and all she sees is some dude she needs to tear limb from limb. That creepy necklace has got her mind all twisted. There's no escaping the voice in her head, pushing her to kill. Elaine was almost there when this crazy cold hit, and she saw this weird light coming from the street. She barely had time to think something was up before courtiers started booking it out of there in a panic. Fear gripped her. She forgot how to breathe for a second, seeing the unholy mess that was going down. The magic's settling like freaking sand everywhere, and it's definitely Bella's. That blue flame's hers. Only one question was running through Elaine's head. How did this happen? Bella's flames are coming from the palace. Even though it's way too dangerous, the brave girl charged ahead, feeling like she had to find her mom. The second that blue flame burst from the palace, she saw Bella, like a savage, completely changed. The witch, possessed by a demon in her head, went ballistic on her own daughter, seeing her as nothing but a target. Elaine didn't get why she was attacking until she saw the burning medallion and realized Bella had lost it. Not giving up on stopping Bella, the girl desperately tried to calm her down, careful not to hurt her. But, driven by those devilish voices in her head, the witch had insane strength and shoved the girl away. This was getting seriously dangerous. The bloodthirsty witch had totally lost it. Facing that kind of power, a battered Elaine was at a complete loss. She was in a seriously bad spot. She needed to figure something out, and fast. Staring death in the face, the heroine locked eyes with her just as she suddenly struck. The girl felt a sharp pain in her throat, but more importantly, she saw the magic pendant around the witch's neck. Leaping back, Elaine realized that enchanted necklace was what was turning her into this, so she figured it was her only shot to save her mom, no matter what, even if it meant dying herself. Channeling that sword aura, she got as close as she could to finally snatch that demon pendant. The second the witch stabbed her and touched her heart, Elaine grabbed the pendant and told Bella to get back. Instantly, the witch's demonic eyes faded. She snapped out of it, but too late, the girl gave her life for it. Watching Elaine's lifeless body hit the ground, all Bella could think about was the mess she'd made. This was her fate, to die here. With her last breath, she apologized to Bella, who'd arrived too late. On January 31st, the people of Feline, the capital city known as the Empire's Blessing, committed a terrible sin. Knowing Bella was giving her her heart, the girl tried to understand why and begged her not to. Over and over, she kept shouting her name, but the witch vanished with the first gust of wind. Bella blamed only herself for the death of her precious Elaine, but it was too late for regrets. That's why the witch gave the girl her heart, even though she absolutely didn't want it. Maybe Bella has no right to say this as a goodbye, but she asked Elaine to protect her Rehei. Waking up in her own body, the heroine realized she was alive, even though she was sure the witch had run her through. That's when she understood that her mistress really did sacrifice her heart to save her. Searching for an answer as to why Bella did it, the pain of loss crushed her from the inside. The girl had lost her family. Bella was always kind to her, but Elaine isn't the person she should have saved. Suddenly, the girl remembered the necklace she broke right before Bella came to. But when Elaine wore it, there were never any problems. The magic circle drawn on the necklace and her own magic, the same kind, came off her when she got close to the palace. The heroine doesn't remember exactly, but none of it matters now. Even if it cost her her life, Lady Elaine wanted to find the bastard who did this to Bella, not knowing who was responsible. Maybe someone set a trap for Bella, someone who needed a witch's heart for eternal life. The heroine knew that if the heart was the target, it would have been easier to just neutralize the witch. She hasn't gone far, but there's no seal here. Espel, Lloyd, Licht. She doesn't know what happened to those three. The Imperial Palace is gone without a trace. Everything around here is just ruins. To top it all off, Elaine unexpectedly stumbled upon a pack of monsters in the middle of a quiet field. There weren't this many monsters in the Empire. They probably showed up because of what happened. Either way, the girl was trying to move unseen, until she saw a huge monster in the sky. This suspicious monster-infested place is really bugging Lady Elaine. Even though she's wielding a sword, her body feels super light. Plus, she doesn't know why she feels so weird. Sword fighting takes serious strength. But right now, Elaine was more focused on how the hell the mistress had so much mana. Bella trains every single day, but her breathing's always so steady. She says it's not endless mana, she just uses the bare minimum. After all, she's a witch, a being that combines human feelings and mani, a person's will to live a long and beautiful life. That's the energy that makes up a witch's heart. And that's how they live forever. Elaine inherited that kind of power from a witch who seems to have virtually infinite mana from the start. Arriving at that village, she was hoping to find out at least something. But showing up looking like death after killing 1,000 monsters totally freaked out the girl working at the cafe. Finding out it was February 5th, Elaine realized she'd been out cold for 5 days. When she asked about survivors, and if anyone had fled the city here, the mistress looked at her like she was speaking a different language. This girl's talking about survivors from the Feline disaster 5 days ago, but nobody here knows about it. The heroine was totally floored when she heard the Feline disaster happened 20 years ago. It looked like she came here looking for survivors of a 20-year-old disaster, and she wasn't even drunk. Elaine was reeling from what she heard, because she was sure it was year 512. Staring at the murdered maids, Lord Rehei realized she'd taken her own life. The night was lost. Needing an order to keep searching for the killer, the Lord could use a break from this, but there's nothing he can do. It's always been like this. Duke Rehei de Feline Killiard, son of the late Lloyd Feline, reached master level at 16. People call him the miracle-working lord who resurrected the dying land of Feline. The feline knights under his command are highly respected warriors, but he can't hide the fact that he's the son of a witch. Last maid standing. The Duke offered her a deal, spill what they're plotting, and he'll let her live. Against all odds, Rehei seemed merciful to the crazed girl. Considering his mom's a witch, he's got to know how many people his mother killed. How many picked up swords wanting to take him down? The Duke's men offered to bring fresh veggies, but he refused. Dude just lost his appetite. That nightmare happened 20 years ago. Rehei was just a kid back then. If Esme or Lloyd were there, that means the witch got to them. Feeling like she had nothing left to live for, Elaine went downstairs to grab some water. Hearing that, the mistress promised to get her water right away, asking if she needed anything else. Even though the girl only wanted water, the woman remembered the soup and rushed to bring it. During supper, the mistress wondered if the girl was traveling. She'd never seen her around before. With Feline Forest crawling with monsters, nobody comes here, which means our girl is the only guest. Truth is, the woman's lonely working here. It'd be great if her son came back. Mentioning the Feline Knights, she said her son left for there a month ago. But more than that, she was curious where the girl was from, if she didn't know about the local knights. Hearing about an order of knights led by Duke Feline, the stunned heroine dropped her spoon. The mere thought that it's the witch's son, and that he's alive, made her hands tremble, and hot tears streamed down her face. Suddenly, she jumped up. The more the woman talked to her, the stranger the girl seemed. Right now, Elaine just needs to find the Duke, who should be in Killiard. Though there's a monster nest right in front of the fortress wall, the castle knights were seriously bored that day. Even if they don't know when the monsters will attack, they're saved by the thought that the Feline Knights will sort it all out. Knowing the knights were out on a mission, see-all was all, "Relax. The wall's got a barrier. No way monsters are getting through." Just then, they heard this weird noise. But the kid figured there's no chance monsters got that close. But the noise kept going, so they went to check it out. And they looked down and saw a person. Finally, after yelling up to them, Elaine sweetly asked if they could open the gates. And that's how she ended up inside the headquarters of the Empire's Second Knightly Order. Lovell, the commander's subordinate, figured out that this girl just walked right through a monster nest. Lady said, "Yeah," so casually that the freaked-out dude felt like he had to explain it again. She walked through a monster nest. And she did it alone, with no help? The Solve Mountains are dangerous, but Ramses Mountains are a straight-up monster nest. To get here in a week, Elaine had no choice but to take that path. The Killiard Knights initiation is in 2 days, so she was rushing to get here on time. This girl was dead set on making it through the Felis Knights selection process. When Lavelle found out the entrance exam was the reason for her rush, he said it's held every year. Elaine couldn't tell them the real reason. 20 years had passed, and she'd only just woken up. They'd never believe it. Deciding to apologize to Rehei later, she just said she needed the money, and the Feline Knights pay big bucks. The commander's subordinate had seen plenty of people apply just for the money, and those types get weeded out in the first round. But the girl insisted she wasn't just in it for the cash. She actually had someone she wanted to protect. Either way, Lovell must have seen some skill in her, considering she managed to cross that mountain range. The Feline Knights are way different than regular knights. They're an elite squad, and their job involves a lot of travel. They're sent to dark places crawling with powerful monsters, and they get a hefty reward for taking them down. That's why their salary is so high, way higher than other knights. Anyone can apply to join the order, but if Elaine dies protecting the family, her family's screwed. Even with the lower pay, Lovell suggested a less risky job for the sake of her family. But this brave warrior maiden wanted to protect her family and live, not wanting to relive losing the only family member she had. Giving her the choice, the subordinate promised to prepare a room and said he'd show her how to apply tomorrow. Honestly, he wasn't sure about crossing the mountain range alone. Something's definitely up. Not knowing if it was luck or skill, Lovell planned to report to the commander tomorrow. Sleep plunged Elaine into memories of better times, when Rehei would play with her hair as it blew in the wind. Then Lloyd tainted their whole family paradise. His bloody body haunted her mind and wounded her soul. The girl stopped breathing for a second, when suddenly the ground beneath her feet cracked and started to crumble. Hearing cries for help, she turned and saw the killer threatening her, only Bella and only Rehei. The heroine's heart shattered the instant her family was brutally murdered, right before her eyes. Elaine jolted awake, drenched in sweat, the reality hitting her. It was just a dream. Rehei's alive, and she's never letting him out of her sight again. She'll protect him, even if it kills her. And that's exactly why our heroine decided to start with the Feline Knights recruitment drive. She filled out the application, hoping they wouldn't forget to put her on the student roster. All this, just to see Rehei. He'll be reunited with his sister real soon. But first, he got some unexpected news from his subordinate, Lavelle. So the Duke made time for it. Handing over a recruit's form, the subordinate said the guy had come through the pass 2 days ago. At first, he couldn't believe it when he heard the report. He came down from the tower, and there he was, a real person. He was lucky to escape the mountains, but you don't just luck your way out of that place. At first, Lavelle thought it was a demon, but then he realized it was definitely a human. Nothing like a demon at all. And this dude said he wanted to take the Feline Knights entrance exams, and he wasn't lying either. After checking out the applicant's papers, the Duke just laughed and sent his subordinate packing. Lady Elaine has applied to join the Order of the Feline Knights. Rehei Feline hasn't heard that name in ages. Rehei wasn't around for the first and second qualifying tests, so Elaine was super curious if she'd see him at the final trial. While she was thinking about that, she noticed another newbie asking if he could sit down. He's having a hard time eating alone, plus he's also trying out to be a Feline Knight. Loud shouts came from behind them. Guys were loudly admiring this badass, Magafe. They say if anyone gets in Magaf's way, they'll be flat on their back. This blue belt proves you survived the Feline Knight's morning trial. Suddenly, one of Magaf's fanboys noticed the girl next to him also had a blue belt. Furious, the guy decided a chick like her must have just stolen it. He thought the feline level was so low, even a girl could pass it. Magaf was only here for the paycheck. Everyone else seemed weak to him. Elaine ignored guys like that, until the bastard called the Duke a half-breed with witch blood. Magaf figured the girl must have bewitched the Duke, because their noble lord was a weakling. It's obvious anyway, looking at all these knights, witch's kid, half-breed, just a joke. Those words cut deep. And to stop herself from doing something she'd regret, she demanded Magaf take it back. She wanted him to take back everything that jerk just said. Figuring he'd somehow bruised her ego, the guy acted like he had no clue what she was talking about. Truth is, Elaine couldn't care less what he said to her. But disrespecting the Duke? That's a line you don't cross. By defending the witch's son, she caught some serious side-eye. Like she should just ignore what people say about the Duke. That's when the girl realized she'd stumbled into a place where everyone straight up hated Rehei. On application day for the Knights, after handing in her form, Elaine was about to head out, when suddenly she overheard some woman trash-talking the Feline Knights, who follow the witch's son. But the man, trying to calm her down, reminded her that the witch's son is the head of Feline. That wasn't an excuse for the woman. The witch killed her whole family, burned her entire village to the ground in an instant. Without even trying, our girl ended up overhearing just how horribly people talked about the Duke, the witch's descendant. All because of that incident, Bella's direct descendant, while Elaine was asleep for 20 years. If those losers had time to run their mouths, the rookie suggested they work on themselves for a change. Magafe looked pathetic to him, especially with that arrogant attitude. That got under Magafe's skin, so he instantly went for his knife, thinking this punk had a death wish. Lady Elaine stopped him, saying pulling a knife in the dining hall wasn't exactly smart. Sensing some weird power coming from the girl, Magaf decided to explain who he was. Turns out, standing before the heroine was Magafe Elid, the legendary Magafe. Like anyone cared, Elaine didn't give a damn who he was. This self-proclaimed Magafe, so weird. Hearing that, the dude went ballistic and lunged at her, figuring she was trying to make fun of him. Little did he know, he just attacked someone who could kick his ass in 2 seconds flat with her bare hands. After she was done with that jackass, the girl told him to scram if he didn't want to get hurt. This newbie was hyped after seeing that. Taking down a beast that size deserves some serious props. They hadn't gotten acquainted yet, so Cezanne properly introduced himself. Fate brought them together, and the kid hoped they'd keep training as partners, which Elaine wanted too. With all the prep work done, the third exam, the one perfect for our girl, was finally kicking off. Only the recruits who had taken down all the monsters were chosen at that point. Cezanne knew his friend would pass, and Elaine was stoked he did too, but she couldn't find Reggie anywhere. Before the test, Commander Lovell's subordinate was about to lay down the rules for the soldiers. First off, the order is random. You'll fight an examiner in the circle drawn here. If you leave the circle, step on the line, or lose within a minute, you're disqualified and you fail the test. When the recruits got the chance to ask questions, all Elaine cared about was if the Duke would show up for the exam. Suddenly, everything froze, and she saw a guy she recognized instantly standing right in front of her. It's Duke Feline, the dude who's going to be grading the test. What's he doing here? Convincing herself this guy's Rehei. The heroine didn't expect him to get so freaking tall. The leader of the Feline Knights, Rehei Feline. The students are up against him. He's here to judge. Before starting, he told everyone to relax and just show him what they've got. Then, Lovell told everyone to chill in the waiting area until their turn, and called up the first contestant, Heather Tage. Totally stoked to fight the Grand Duke, brave Heather charged straight in for a head-on attack. But as soon as he got too close, the Duke took him down and knocked his sword flying. The mighty Duke Rehei is crazy strong. It looked like nobody could last even a minute against him. And just like that, one by one, the contestants got eliminated. They were pathetically weak. Elaine's turn finally came, and the brave girl stepped onto the battlefield without hesitation. Looking Rehei straight in the eye, the heroine couldn't reveal her true self. She crossed the monster's lair alone, fearlessly reaching the final exam. So the Duke was certain it was Elaine. Both sides were ready, so the duel began. And no one but them knew the story connecting them. Once, back when they were kids, they used to spar. But Rehei was still too young back then. He was only 3, but he didn't want to wait until he was older, dreaming of being just like his sister. That's when Elaine made him promise he'd learn to fence, but never draw his sword against family. For that, Rehei's sister even took it upon herself to teach him how to fence. She also vowed to keep her promise, wanting to protect her brother, just as he would protect his family. Now, face to face with her brother in battle, she realized she hadn't kept her promise. Leaving Rehei to grow up alone, without her, was the absolute worst thing she could have done to him. When their blades clashed, the Duke, all fired up, figured her sword wouldn't stand a chance. But against all odds, she didn't lose hope, and with a surge of strength, she knocked his sword aside. She didn't even know what she was doing. There's a limit to everything. Less than 20 seconds left. But the question is, will her sword hold? It seemed like with such a flimsy sword, she wouldn't last, and neglecting her weapon was a huge mistake. Just as expected, Elaine's sword was too weak against the Duke's weapon. It couldn't take it and shattered. Even so, she desperately kept fighting, determined not to let Rehei crush her spirit. Right then, seeing some real talent in her, the Duke praised her and offered her a spot in the Knight's Order. Just hearing that she'd passed the entrance exam made her burst with joy. She couldn't hold it in. Pretty soon, out of all the applicants, only the very best recruits were selected to become knights. They were all standing before Grand Duke Feline. The Feline Knight's ceremony was about to begin. Taking the ceremony seriously, Rehei asked them to step up to the platform in order, left to right. Lady Elaine was first in line, her sword a symbol of justice, her heart a beacon of mercy. On this day, she swore an oath of loyalty, courage, and honor, bearing the light of knighthood. Keeping her honor and faith, she would have to give her life for Feline, and by her oath, she would be with the king in life and in death. The heroine swore allegiance, wanting to keep her final promise, to protect Rehei. But right now, she couldn't tell the whole truth, knowing it would hurt Rehei to realize that Bella's heart belonged to her. Elaine promised to keep this secret in her heart, forever locking it away inside. The one and only Bella and her precious Rehei, Milady's new life would belong to him. Now that it was all over, it was time for introductions. The deputy commander decided to introduce himself first. One of the Feline Knights, Lord Lavelle, is the Duke's aide-de-camp. Next to him is another one of the Duke's deputies, Hilla Rister. The Feline Knight's main goal is dealing with monsters, and knights are chosen based on the difficulty and their skill set. They aim to subdue monsters and fulfill requests from the government. Since the position of Duke's escort has been vacant for a while, they're now accepting applicants. Looks like it's too tough for the rookies. Just like Lovell predicted, nobody wants it. But then, out of nowhere, a hand in a white glove appeared, like a symbol of courage and nobility. Among all the applicants, Lady Elaine wants to be an escort knight. Like a true knight, she lives dangerously. Whispers immediately spread through the crowd. The knights who stayed back thought this woman was strange. The girl wasn't expecting that reaction at all, especially from knights who are leaders of Rehei. Just when she'd given up on making a good first impression, the knight girl totally recognized her as Elaine. After the ceremony, Suzanne couldn't believe she'd agreed to follow the Duke, not knowing what the job entailed. Still, she didn't think it was weird that Sir Feline was escorting the captain. In the middle of the conversation, a woman's voice cut through, and she recognized the guy with Sir Suzanne as Weston. Happy to see him, Sophia Rossley said she was a year older than him, but she completely iced out Elaine. When Sophia started grilling them about what they were doing there, and if anything was going on between them, Elaine decided to bail. Claiming the deputy captain was calling her, she was about to head out first. Stepping outside, she saw snow, and she was stoked about the first snow she'd seen since waking up. Suddenly, she noticed a horse wandering nearby, and even though it was strange, she decided to pet it. At that moment, along with the first snow, the Duke appeared. He'd never seen Nikki let anyone touch him before. The boss remembers Elaine and heard she's decided to become his personal knight. It was kind of funny him bringing it up, until he said the girl's better off leaving. All his escort knights died protecting him from assassins, and miracle or not, Rehei was sure she'd lose her life here. Hearing that, Elaine couldn't even begin to imagine what he'd gone through. The Knights of Feline are the strongest after all. She hadn't heard anything about knights getting killed. Seeing her eagerness to protect the Duke, Rehei found it funny how she could be so sure she wouldn't die. Truth is, she'd already sworn an oath, placing her life in his hands. She's not the type to go down easy. So, Elaine was allowed to stay. She was so happy, almost like she was thrilled about potentially dying. Her courage knows no fear, and her determination no bounds. A true knight, she'll die protecting her captain. Lord Rehei didn't get it, but whatever. He headed home, saying goodbye until tomorrow. That's when Milady finally realized how tough it had been for him all alone, and she vowed to never leave his side. The Duke thought it was weird that this girl was jumping at the chance to protect him. And just like that, our girl's first day as an escort knight was here. Now all she could think about was being with Rehei, and she couldn't wait to see him. But as she got to his office, she noticed the door was open, and she heard angry yelling inside. Elaine was positive they were calling her name, and she had no clue why they were screaming this early. Knowing how Sophia must be feeling, according to the Duke's aide, it was all settled for her. Lord Lovell had turned her down, said she wasn't right for the job, and decided to take this woman as the escort knight. The fact that they didn't like her made Sophia furious, so she decided to bail in the middle of the conversation. Bursting out of the office, she bumped into the very girl who took her place. She seriously hates her. Lady Rossley couldn't take the humiliation anymore. She shoved the girl aside and ran off. Spotting the vice captain looking all stressed out, Elaine immediately wanted to know what was up. This wasn't the place to talk about it, so Lovell suggested they discuss it on the way to the office. The Lord was worried Sophia had been too rough, but Elaine was fine. Just a little bump on the head. Besides, Lady Rossley also applied to be a night escort. She joined them last year. Back then, the commander turned her down, and Sophia eventually gave up. But this year, with Elaine in the position, Rossley thought it was unfair to her. So there is someone who genuinely wants to protect Rehei. The heroine's glad not everyone hates him. They soon arrived at the main office. A subordinate knocked and announced he'd brought Elaine. Getting no response, Lovell opened the door, only to find the room completely empty. Guess the commander's at training, which is why the lady got the green light to wait for him in his office. After checking out Rehei's workspace, the girl suddenly spotted a sword she'd seen somewhere before. Back in her past life, Elaine hit up a blacksmith to get a special design engraved on that sword. She had it engraved in a super visible spot, planning to give the sword to Rehei for his birthday. She couldn't give it to her brother back then. He was too small for a sword like that. He needed to wait a bit. The fact that the sword was supposed to be finished when the branch got wrecked clued Elaine in that Rehei found it. Just then, she felt someone behind her, and the Duke was pissed, wanting to know what she was up to. Rehei immediately drew his combat sword, 'cause nobody messes with his stuff without permission. Trying to figure out what to do, the girl bowed and said she was just being careless. Looks like the Duke was majorly ticked off, but he didn't do anything, deciding to bounce first. Lovell, freaked out about the lady's condition, rushed over, saying he should have warned her. Thinking about it, she got why Rehei was pissed. To him, she's just some random girl. Not sure about the rest, the Duke's man warned her that she couldn't touch that sword. Elaine stopped breathing when she heard that. She didn't know the sword was the Crown Prince's most prized possession. Lord Lovell doesn't know all the details either, since the heir always carries the sword like a lucky charm. Anyway, they need to head out, 'cause His Highness is doing a patrol and will be at the front door. But at that moment, the only thing the girl cared about was that Rehei liked the sword she'd painstakingly prepared. Rehei first encountered his weapon on a totally normal day, when Walter suddenly brought him something. Seeing the precious sword with engravings in the fancy box, the kid didn't get what was up at first. Turns out, Walter met a guy at the fortress gates who said he was the grandson of the blacksmith who forged the sword. This guy asked the knight to deliver this sword to young Master Rehei. When the kid heard that, he wanted to know if Walter knew him, knew what he believed in, and why he showed it. Actually, the knight was meeting him for the first time, but the man said Elaine commissioned the sword. That day, Ray learned for the first time that his mother, that woman, came from a really powerful family. Because the young master doesn't like to think about his mother, his subordinate never told him anything. Before he could find out who Elaine was, he said he'd hear out the Lord and then judge for himself. The only thing he wanted to know was where this blacksmith was right now. Turns out the blacksmith was on his deathbed, but he said Elaine went to Seneca, but never came back for the sword. Maybe she got caught up in what happened in Seneca, so the old man waited until the sword was finished. As you can see, he didn't have long left in this world, so he wanted to find this kid. Good thing, even if it took a while, the gift finally found its owner. Walter once said that Rehei grew up showered with love when he was a kid. Even though he doesn't remember that time, he couldn't give Elaine's sword to anyone. Soon, with all the knights assembled, Lord Rehei was about to explain today's patrol route. Lately, the number of out-of-towners has spiked because of the exams, and we're getting reports of accidents and crimes. So today, the Duke is personally patrolling the area, sending half the squad north and keeping the rest with him. The Lord's carrying the gifted sword, and just as expected, it's a perfect fit for Rehei. Once the night squad headed out to patrol the city, Elaine realized her fears were unfounded. Everyone seemed to be in high spirits, and just as expected, the locals are grateful to Rehei. Suddenly, a little girl, a local, called out to her, holding out a bag of cookies for the Duke. Not knowing what to do, the heroine asked the Duke for advice, and Rehei asked her to take them, planning to eat them later. Elaine was so grateful, gladly accepting the gift, certain His Majesty would love it. Everyone was so distracted by the little girl that they didn't even notice the nasty old dude appear out of nowhere. Elaine barely had time to warn the Duke about the danger behind them when the old man dumped a whole bucket of water on them. At the very last second, like a bodyguard, the brave girl threw herself in front of the water. She was soaked to the bone, but right now, the commander's safety was all that mattered. For attempting to take His Majesty's life and intentionally causing harm, the criminal was immediately caught. Nobody messed with the Duke like that, so the knights grabbed him and tied his hands. Because of the Duke's damn mother, his grandkids died. They weren't even 5 years old, so the old man didn't understand why Rehei was still alive. Realizing that the deceased family died during the Seneca incident, Elaine was convinced it wasn't Bella's fault. Since Rehei could have totally avoided that, he decided to figure out why the girl did something so reckless. First, he ordered a knight to take Lady Elaine to a place where she could wash up and dry off. Right then, an angry old dude accused the Duke of using his subordinates as meat shields. In his eyes, Rehei was just like the witch, but His Highness wasn't about to listen to that crap. The cold-blooded Duke told him he should be grateful he wasn't having his throat slit right then and there. The Lord immediately gave the order to take the old guy away and throw him in the slammer. Then, in the quiet of the city, you could hear the criminal's desperate screams. Seemed like everyone knew Rehei's mom's sins. The fact that he's alive is a sin in itself. But the Duke doesn't give a damn about those words thrown like daggers. For some reason, the thought of the moment when Elaine saved him just felt so unpleasant. The number of people had thinned out enough, so he decreed that patrols would continue tomorrow. The old man wasn't lying. Everyone knows about the Duchess's sins, like her being related to a witch. But it's also true that he brought this street back to life. Either way, Rehei was sure about one thing. His existence wasn't a mistake. The rumors about Elaine getting splashed with water instead of the Duke spread fast and reached Suzanne. He was so worried about her that he started yelling, but she insisted she was fine. Even though she's just an attendant, Suzanne couldn't understand how she could risk her life like that. If it had been boiling water or poison, Elaine wouldn't have just clammed up. Of course, we can't rule out the possibility that she's injured or sick, but she figured His Highness would be even more hurt if he got injured. After saying that, the heroine decided to leave first. Her escort duties weren't over yet. Elaine changed and went to the Duke's office, apologizing for taking longer than she expected. Rehei had just arrived himself, so it wasn't a big deal. But what he really wanted to know was why this girl was so selfless. Hearing she was an attendant, the Duke realized he shouldn't have asked such a dumb question. He seemed to suspect what was happening to him. He was putting his feelings on display too much. Lord Feline was so deep in thought, he didn't notice he'd spilled ink all over the desk. Seeing the girl's worried face, he told her not to fuss. He'd just rewrite the papers. But it wasn't about the papers. Rehei had gotten ink all over his hand. Not afraid of getting dirty, the girl took his hand to wipe it with her handkerchief. It made her think back to when Rehei was a kid. He used to catch colds all the time. Elaine had no choice but to carry that handkerchief around with her all the time. She thought that now that he's grown up, she'd finally have a chance to use it. But she was wrong. Like the Duke pointed out, the handkerchief's unusable now, but that's exactly what it's for. When everything was set, Milady suggested he use some plain water to get rid of the rest of the stain. Feeling real weird, Rehei felt like he was being treated like a kid for the first time. After that, things were quiet for a few days while our girl watched Rehist work. Until one day, something happened that no one saw coming. That day, after thanking his attendant for doing a good job, the Duke said goodnight till tomorrow. Thankfully, nothing out of the ordinary happened today either. Elaine was hoping things would just keep going smoothly, without any incidents. She was riding high, thinking everything was going to be smooth sailing, until she bumped into a freaked-out maid in the hallway. The girl recognized Lady Elaine's attendant. She was totally lost and begged for help. Turns out, there was this weird noise coming from the other wing, so the maid suggested they go check it out together. As soon as the lady agreed, the maid's confusion flipped to straight-up glee. like she'd been expecting it all along. The sound was seriously ominous, and our girl had no clue what the hell was going on in there. They barely rounded the corner when Elaine felt a sword swing at her. Lucky for her, she reacted fast enough to block it. Sensing the danger, the maid started shaking like a leaf and stayed glued to her mistress's back. Elaine couldn't believe that when she walked in here, she'd be ambushed by a whole crew of people. These were hired killers. Before she could even get ready to fight, the assassins were already launching throwing knives at her. She was fighting tooth and nail, but the enemies were coming on way too strong. Seeing the master's sword in enemy hands, she couldn't believe there was a master among these mercs. Anyone who could wield that thing's gotta be strong, and their main target's probably Rehei. Like a scorching wind tearing through everything, the warrior maiden blazed through them, a whirlwind with that sword. In just moments, she'd taken down all the mercs but one, leaving him totally stunned. The mask-wearing kid couldn't believe his eyes. He was sure she'd only just joined the order. All that mattered was shutting him up. So Elaine jammed her blade right under his ribs. She was gonna leave him alive, because she needed to find out who was behind all this. Thinking things were clear for now, she suddenly heard a weird noise coming from somewhere else. She bolted forward without looking, as soon as she realized the sound was coming from Rhee's room. By the time Elaine burst into his study, the maid was about to off the Duke like a traitor. Duty-bound to protect her captain, the brave lady charged in and sliced that nasty maid to ribbons. That's when we knew the maid was one of them. But the important thing is, the Duke's safe for now. Rehei claimed the room got swarmed by mercenaries too. Then the escort noticed bloodstains on his clothes. He's actually fine, and besides, that's not even his blood. Lovell showed up out of nowhere, totally confused by the scene. This was a new one, all right. You could tell he was seriously bummed that, after just a month since the last hit, this crap was happening again. So, turning to His Highness and Lady Elaine, the Lord figured it was time to shake things up a bit. It might seem kinda sudden, but he suggested moving Elaine's residence to the next room over. Hearing that, she was stoked. But the Duke clearly didn't see that coming. Right on cue, despite Rehei's grumbling, she was ready to move ASAP, taking full responsibility. Still, this is totally out of the blue for His Highness, but honestly, talking about protocol right now is just weird. Lord Lovell says the Duke's guard knights are down, and we gotta move fast, 'cause he's still in danger. Rehist thought they were in on something together, and he didn't even believe the lady wanted to switch rooms that bad. Since she really wanted it, the master let them do whatever they wanted. It would have been awesome to run off and pack right away. But first, they needed to clean up the hall. That night, when the mercenary finally came to, the Duke was about to take his gag off. The kid felt like total crap, and first wanted to know how many days he'd been locked up. Hearing that, Rehei was shocked, because it hadn't even been an hour. Turns out that woman was so strong, the mercenary thought he'd been knocked out for days. After hearing from the attendant that the kid had reached master level, the Duke wanted to know who ordered him to do this. The assassin was sure the Lord was asking a question he already knew the answer to, like he had no clue how many masters there even were on the continent. Truth is, Lord Feline was testing a theory, seeing if the kid would betray the guy who hired him. If this son of a bitch bites off his tongue and dies right now, the Duke won't say another word, giving him a chance to choose his own death. However, if he confesses, Rehei will forget this whole attack ever happened, doubting it was for real. The mercenary figured the guy was just trying to get a confession before killing him, but that meant the Duke would keep him alive until he confessed. Wanting to get out of this prison more than anything, even if it was risky, the kid agreed to spill everything. Blood splattered his face, and a sharp pain shot through him as he saw the point of a shoe jammed into his throat. That's messed up. The maid couldn't believe her partner caved to the enemy's sweet talk. That's why she thought you shouldn't use masters who are only in it for the money. The guy she works for never saw this betrayal coming, so he put together a hit squad. It's just a bunch of people who hate the Duke, a temporary force bought and paid for. Plenty of people hate Rehei and want him dead. He can't beat their boss, even with traitors like these. Then the maid swallowed the poison she had stashed in her cheek. Now everyone involved is dead. Figuring it's pointless to find out who's behind this, Rehei just thinks, that's messed up. Finally packing all her stuff, Lady Elaine wanted to double-check she hadn't forgotten anything. Just the thought of living next door to Rehei made her happy. Hoping he's safe, the girl suddenly runs into Suzanne. He heard about last night, says it was mercenaries, so he was worried if everything was okay. He's relieved to hear Elaine's all right. Suzanne's been worried about her ever since she became an escort. Out of nowhere, this woman shows up near the bulletin board and recognizes Lady Elaine in the crowd. Sophia says that even after a rough day, Milady looks pretty damn good. She also hopes to be with the Duke after the training camp trip, which is news to our girl. Cezanne mentioned a 3-day training notice. The Feline Knights always do that this time of year. Lady Sophia thinks the Duke's got it rough, and she's scared someone might screw up and get him hurt. She wasn't saying Lady Elaine's incompetent, just that she's worried about a repeat of yesterday's mess. Miss Rossley chimed in, saying Lady Elaine's the only escort His Majesty trusts. Hearing that, our girl can't believe Lady Sophia thinks that highly of her. She vows to work even harder from now on to protect His Highness. Thinking the woman's super weird, Sophie suggests meeting up at the camp. She's been keeping tabs on Elaine since day one, seeing how she handles her escort duties. Since Lady Rossley thinks so highly of her, the heroine figured she should work even harder on Rehei. When she knocked on the study door, nobody answered, and the room was totally empty. She needed to get the keys to her new room from the Duke, so she decided to wait for him. It struck her as weird that he was late, because that just never happened before. Just in case, she decided to head to the room, but noticed the door was already open in the hallway. Right then, Elaine's mind jumped to the worst, thinking murders and stuff always happen. It could happen again. Terrified it was happening again, the desperate girl burst into the room yelling. But then, she saw the handsome Rehei shirtless. So yeah, it totally worked. Feeling a crazy rush inside, Elaine, totally embarrassed, bolted out of the Duke's bedroom. Just like I figured, she slipped and almost ate it, but Rehei caught her at the last second. Their eyes met, and the dude caught that look again. You know, the one filled with all kinds of weird feelings. Blaming it on her nerves, she bolted and actually shut the door behind her this time. Lady Elaine's totally lost it. I don't care how worried she is. You can't just barge in like that. Rehei's a grown-ass man. 23 already, which means it's time to settle down, get married. The heroine just couldn't picture it. Maybe it's 'cause she's used to little Rehei. One day, someone's gonna be his sweetheart. Doesn't matter who, just as long as the kid's happy. Just then, the Duke poked his head out, already dressed. He figured she came for the keys. That's when the lady apologized for what happened, for not knocking before she came in. Rehei was actually surprised, but he knew she didn't mean it, so it's all good. When he found out Elaine left all her stuff in his office, the Duke suggested they go get it. She was thinking about asking why he was late, but decided it'd be pushing it. Like he could read her mind, Rehei said he'd overslept. No surprise there, since Elaine kept glancing at him with this something on your mind look. Just the thought that him oversleeping was weird made His Majesty smile. The first time he'd done that. Truth is, he had nightmares. Woke up a little later than usual, and was late because he was showering. The fact he was sweating meant he had a terrible nightmare, one he's been having for a while now. At that point, he suggested they wrap up the conversation and get to moving her things, but even then, Elaine couldn't shake the thought that he's been having the same nightmare over and over. The Duke didn't give details, but the dream must be connected to the Seneca incident, and if it's that bad, it's better off gone. The girl figured she needed to find some herbs to help him sleep better. From now on, she was going to watch over him. A few days later, with all the preparations done, it was time for the Feline Knights to hit the road. On February 22nd, the Feline Knights left Killiard for a 3-day training exercise. They'd been hiking for 3 hours, but still hadn't reached their destination. Cezanne was clearly beat. Abel, who enlisted at the same time as him, couldn't figure out how he became a master with stamina like that. Suddenly, the squad stopped. They'd finally arrived, even though it just looked like a small path in the woods. Turns out, ahead of them was a cliff with a waterfall, and their camp was at the top. Not only did they still have a long way to go, but from this point on, the guys were going to have to climb that cliff. And by the Duke's orders, the last 7 to reach the top would be going for a swim. Immediately, the Feline Knights took off towards the cliff, not looking back to save time, and Elaine ran after them. But then, out of nowhere, she stopped dead in the crowd, like she caught a glimpse of something. Seeing her frozen in place, Cezanne grabbed her hand and yelled, "Run!" Now, thinking she was just seeing things, she took off. But yeah, her eyes definitely weren't playing tricks on her. Looks like the newbies got wrecked again. They had no clue they were in for a surprise training session like this. But hey, looks like there's a few interesting ones in the bunch. Those two made it here pretty damn quick. Just looking at the water made Cezanne's blood run cold. He was so relieved they got here first. Elaine wasn't even sure what place she got. Honestly, she wasn't really paying attention. She could have totally taken first if she went all out with her skills. But it's better not to stand out right now. Abel, who'd already felt the pain of the punishment, noticed Cezanne got lucky. He made it and wouldn't have to go in. From the start, Sir Weston told him to take the mountain trail. Knew right away it was a rookie trying to climb the cliff alone. Since our young master here's such a hotshot, Abel figured he'd give him a little taste of the action too. Cezanne was absolutely fuming because he got here first, and now he didn't even need to get wet. The knight's laughter died down real quick. You could feel the demonic energy in the air as a huge monster emerged from the thick forest. Standing face to face with the mighty Rehei, the Duke ordered everyone to draw their swords. Elaine was the only one who thought it was weird seeing a monster that lives in warm climates show up in such a freezing place. Deciding to engage, the Duke ordered only the 5 in front of him to cover him and the rest to hold back. Just as Rehei charged to attack, a knight blocked his path, begging him to stop. Insisting that the monster couldn't be killed, the kid warned him that he'd be in big trouble if he did. The desperate knight stood right in front of the monster, even though it was dangerous, and everyone told him to get out of there. The monster was right behind him, but he couldn't budge. If he did, the others would kill it. Not even afraid of the commander stepping in, the kid wasn't backing down, saying he couldn't. Just then, the enraged monster slammed its fist into the ground where the guy was standing, and the earth beneath him shattered. Trying to figure out what to do, Rehei suddenly spotted Lady Elaine running towards him, totally freaked out. As his escort, she was worried. But the Duke was fine. Plus, he told her not to make a scene. Truth is, this kid shouldn't have raised any flags. He's just a regular wizard, even if everyone got the wrong idea. With a snap of his fingers, the young mage seemed to banish the monster to another dimension. Then he finally sighed in relief. But he shouldn't have thought the Duke would let him off that easy. To keep him from running, Rehei held a sword to his throat. Pressing the blade deeper into his skin, His Highness demanded to know where the kid sent Rehei. Under pressure, the mage had to admit he sent the monster to his lab in the forest, where he does his experiments. Knowing the rumors that all wizards are a little weird, the Duke decided to find out if he was dabbling in the dark arts. The wizard swore it was impossible, and he was even ready to prove it. Seeing the badge in his hand, Rehei instantly knew this guy was from Heilon. It's issued by the Heilon Royal Academy of Sorcery, a special badge for senior graduates. His name, Nathan, is engraved on the back of the badge. Solid proof to make them believe him. But as the Duke figured, whether that engraving really is his name can only be verified at Heilon. Since proving it now would be harder, Nathan used some magic to slip away. Panicked, Lord Rehei tried to stop him, but it was already too late when the mage teleported. And even though Elaine was ready to chase after him, the Duke ordered her to forget it, planning to just contact the academy. What's more, it'll be dark soon. Before then, the squad needs to get 3 days' worth of food and be back here before sunset. If the guys did their math right, they returned here by nightfall, managing to snag enough meat for dinner. The whole point of this training camp is to teach these rookies how to adapt to any situation. Plus, by building connections here, these newbies can bridge the gap with the veteran guys and their colleagues. The commander's really hoping everyone understands this and supports the new recruits. When it was finally dinner time, Elaine turned to the Duke and offered him some meat. Thinking the big leg might be hard for him to eat because of the bones, she grabbed a smaller one, just in case. The entire team thought what Lady Elaine was doing right now was totally insane. Watching her, a furious Sophia couldn't believe she was treating His Highness like a kid. Rehei, insisting he wasn't a child anymore, told his attendant to eat it herself. The heroine had to silently accept the fact that the Duke was all grown up. Come to think of it, that sorcerer they saw earlier, Elaine was pretty sure he's the head of Heilong Royal Academy. 20 years ago, this place was a famous magic academy. Half the kingdom's wizards graduated from here. That's when it hit her. Someone from Heilon might know something about the Seneca incident. They all took the same courses. Maybe this mysterious sorcerer even knows about this magic pearl. Late that night, after everyone crashed, the heroine decided to ditch the place before the night watch showed up. Watching the girl, Sophie was super curious where the heck she was going at this hour. On the way, Elaine kept thinking about how Nathan's teleportation trace was verified during the hunt. Before she could finish that thought, she slammed to a halt. A cliff edge right in front of her. Everything was different here a few hours ago. The trail just ends right at this spot. To test it, the girl tossed some pebbles down, but she was stunned to see them floating on the surface of the cliff. Just as she thought, it's an illusion. A well-crafted space that's morphing into a cave right before her eyes. Turns out, the experiment's results are seriously connected. According to the theory of human-monster relationships, Nathan only needed Saturn. Elaine showing up was a real shocker. The wizard practically forgot how to breathe when he saw her. He freaked out at first, but then he noticed a shape that looked familiar. The warlock couldn't figure out how the girl who wanted to kill his Turthin found this place, but Elaine insisted she wasn't there to hurt him. Even though she was there on personal business, Nathan didn't have time to get sidetracked from his research. So, the heroine dared to guess that he was busy with the Turthan she'd seen earlier that day. Actually, the wizard's research is almost done, but he's missing just one little thing. Elaine figured out right away that he needed Cedrune. She'd overheard the mage muttering it under his breath when she came in. Anyway, the question is, will the sorcerer get to work for the lady if she gets him that item? Saturn is a flower that blooms for a single moment after a blessed fairy rain. It's so rare you can't just buy it. When Nathan found out Elaine knew where it grew, he was ready to do anything to find out its location. Since Nathan hadn't accepted the offer yet, the girl said the place couldn't be shown on a map or have directions given. It's now working in her favor that she used to travel with Bella, not knowing she'd have to look for Saturn. The mage had no other way to get Saturn but to trust her. Alone, it would take him countless years. Just to get that missing element, the wizard agreed to the deal. But he got curious. Why did the girl come to him if she could ask for a magic tower instead? According to Elaine, working with a magic tower is complicated and takes a long time, and she's in a hurry. So she asked him to remember this. He shouldn't reveal to anyone that she was here. And one last thing, Milady asked him to investigate something that's really important to her. Just in case, Sophia tailed her. But she had no idea how far Elaine had gone. She figured she needed to check out what that girl was up to and report back to His Highness. Trying to find her, Lady Rossley stumbled upon a weird cave, and now she had even more questions. The heroine never thought that Nathan, who she just randomly met, would turn out to be this useful. Seeing her at the entrance, Sophia finally realized she'd been here the whole time. Elaine's movements were suspicious, so Lady Rossley followed her and demanded an explanation. It seemed strange to Sophia that the Duke's attendant would just up and leave camp in the middle of the night. It's not hard to guess that there's gotta be something inside that cave. The heroine knew if she got caught talking to Nathan and Reheister found out, she'd be toast. The second Sophia decided to head inside, it felt like she got electrocuted and thrown backwards. Turns out, the illusion magic just poofed into a magic barrier. Faced with something totally weird, Sophia demanded an explanation of what they were doing and what they were hiding. As the Duke's escort, she couldn't spill the beans, 'cause she was ordered to keep it hush-hush. Even though it's a lie, Lady Sophia's a die-hard Duke fan, so she won't dig any deeper. So, Elaine told her to cut the crap and head back to camp, 'cause she'd get nowhere chasing after this. But to Lady Rossley, it just looks like they're trying to intimidate her, hiding behind His Highness. The fact that His Highness let this girl tag along doesn't change a thing for her. Claiming the Duke hates her, Sophia told the girl to know her place, 'cause she was rocking that role just last night. Like she realized she'd lost, Rossley bolted, leaving Elaine alone, thinking Rehei must hate her. 2 days later, after morning roll call, our girl got orders to round up 30 people for a meeting. She wanted to help the Duke, but remembering Sophia's words, she decided to ask if she was annoying him. She was just curious if Reinhardt was uncomfortable being around her. The Duke barely managed to say she wasn't annoying him before Elaine glomped him, overjoyed. That's a huge relief for her, 'cause she was worried he actually hated her. Anyway, they need to start getting ready to head out now. So, after finishing their 3-day training, the Valine Knights returned to Killiard, and 2 days later, they received a message. The message, sent from the Wallendorf County, requested an investigation into a disappearance on the estate. At the Wallendorf County estate, the Knights were greeted warmly by Count Wallendorf himself, who had been waiting for them. He asked for help, but never expected His Grace to come in person. It's their first meeting since the birthday. Holding out his hand to greet him, the Count openly displayed a ring on his finger, which made the Duke tense up big time. After a bunch of people went missing from this estate, the Count finally asks for help. Like, 2 weeks later. He totally blew off the missing persons reports, 'cause the vanished were just common folk, obviously. But now his pampered cat's gone, so it's suddenly an emergency? Seriously messed up. Because the Count dragged his feet getting us involved, the missing persons count has doubled. This wouldn't have happened otherwise. Of course, Sir Filion plans to find Beatrice, but finding the missing people comes first. First things first, he demanded they show him a map of this East Forest everyone's talking about. According to the villagers, a farmer working near the East Forest suddenly stopped what he was doing. He just straightened up and wandered into the woods like he was possessed. And he's still missing. The Duke warned us that this could be a monster that messes with your head, using some kind of mind control. Judging by the map, people disappeared in 3 spots. By the lake, at the villa, and at the riding grounds. Since we have no idea where the monster is, Filion suggested splitting into 3 groups. He and Elaine will head to the lake. The rest of you split in half. 3 go to the villa, the others to the riding grounds. Probably won't need it, but if things go south, The Duke said we can use the red signal flare. If the knights see the signal, they gotta book it over there and help whoever needs it. There was only one monster during training camp, but Elaine was worried about how many there'd be this time. She didn't want Rehei getting hurt. He told her not to worry about it, but Milady didn't want him in danger. But he'd made up his mind. His sister couldn't protect him for 20 years, so she decided not to interfere now either. All she can do is watch his back and support him. It's all for his own good anyway. Suddenly, the wind shifted, and they heard a song, one that was messing with their heads. Right after Rehei ordered them to magically block their ears, a bunch of magical forest creatures surrounded them. Elaine knew right away that it was Lamia, the one behind all the disappearances. Lamia's a monster who can sing hypnotic songs in a snake language, charming people with her voice. Drawing his sword, fearless Asher got ready to fight back-to-back with Elaine. They had to wipe them all out. Fighting as one, the heroes gave it their all to take down the bloodthirsty monsters. There were a lot of these creatures, but they weren't too strong, so dealing with them was easy. Just when things were looking up, a red flare suddenly shot up in the distance. Meanwhile, at another location, the knights stared at an unbelievably huge monster, not knowing what it was. Their enemy is Likios, a snake-type monster of the highest level. Guess his hibernation was interrupted, forcing him to come out. Cezanne never expected to run into him at this time of year. No matter how strong they are, this monster's way out of their league. But one of the girls on the team suggested we bail quietly and join His Highness to call for backup. Just then, a hissing sound came from the woods, and a worried Cezanne stared into the thicket, expecting something awful. The heroes were surrounded by Lamayas, a ton of bloodthirsty, fanged creatures that can mess with your mind. It wasn't until the great and terrible Likios rose above the ground that the knights realized they were in deep trouble. Seeing Likios on the way to help, Elaine immediately understood why the guys had used the flare. When help finally arrived, the team members hadn't given up hope, desperately climbing onto the snake to kill it. First, we need to take care of the injured. It looked like Sir Cezanne wouldn't even be able to report the situation. With his last bit of strength, he said that they had encountered Lamias and Likios on the grounds, and the knights joined them thanks to the flare. But all 6 of them, including Cezanne, are seriously injured, and 2 knights are out of commission. There are no survivors left on the riding grounds, but several people managed to take shelter in the villa after the Lamias were subdued. The Duke said Likos can regenerate. He'll keep healing unless we destroy the core inside him. Sir Feline couldn't pinpoint where it was, so he figured the best bet was to cut him to pieces. Leaving Lady Elaine to protect the wounded, the brave Duke charged right into the monster's clutches without hesitation. He tore through the ruined flesh, managing to find the core inside, which was his target all along. Struck with agonizing pain, Likos thrashed wildly and barreled straight toward the people. Desperate and following her captain's orders, the valiant Elaine drew her sword and shielded the wounded with her body. But then, at that crucial moment, she saw a chance. Rehei jumped in front of her, diving right into the monster's jaws. In that instant, a massive explosion engulfed the battlefield, blasting the knights with dust and immense pressure. Opening her eyes, Sophia saw the Duke was alive and well, and her first thought was Likos. Meanwhile, Lady Elaine had already gotten to work, hacking the monster to bits, piece by piece. She almost got wasted back there. If she hadn't forced him back, Likios would have totally devoured Rehei. Suddenly, the monster howled in pain and started slithering back into the woods. That's when she knew she couldn't let it get away. Just as she was about to chase after it, she heard a scream. Sir Feline had collapsed, out cold. Panicked and not knowing what to do, she started shaking him, trying to wake him up. Seeing the deep wound on his arm, Elaine realized Likios had gotten to the Duke. His poison was going to spread. Rehei, with his last bit of strength, tried to say he was all right, but he couldn't fight what was happening to him. Tears started streaming down her face. In that moment, she remembered Bella dying in her arms, just like this. Luckily, they got the Duke back to the mansion quick, but Likios' poison needs a special antidote. Problem is, that stuff's so rare. It'll take at least 10 days to get a hold of it. Lady Elaine couldn't wait 10 days with the commander's life on the line. She had to find another way. So the doc said we could whip up the antidote ourselves, but we're missing 2 ingredients. Turns out we need freshly dug earthworm licorice and the heart of a Likios. When the team heard that, Sophia wanted to head out pronto, using the core. Finding that monster would be a cinch. But Cezanne thought that was too risky, seeing as how everyone is pretty banged up and low on mana. Going back into the forest like this is a suicide mission. It definitely won't save His Majesty. Since it's nighttime and the knights are still recovering, Lady Elaine volunteered to grab the earthworm licorice first. She knew what it looked like and wasn't injured, so she guaranteed it'd be no sweat. Nobody objected, so they put their faith in Elaine, while they decided to head to the recovery ward. Seeing Rehei in such rough shape, the girl doubled down on finding both the licorice and the Lycios's heart. She's the only one who can save the Duke right now. Suddenly, the girl felt the master grab her hand. Rehei didn't want her to leave him alone again. In his dying state, his only wish was for the lady not to leave. Hoping he'd wait for her, Elaine left, definitely planning to save him and not leave him alone. Meanwhile, Sophia was a little worried, knowing that the Duke's condition had improved slightly. But when she went to his ward, she saw the commander in terrible shape, blood coming from his mouth. Thinking about what to do, Sophia couldn't just let it be. She thought about calling the doctor. The doctor said there was nothing they could do. In the end, they had to use the antidote. Lycios's heart. She decided to get it right now, because if this kept up, the Duke could die. Sophia couldn't doubt her abilities, remembering that Rehei had saved her life twice. Knowing the core's location, she aimed for the weak spot and thrust her sword right into it, hoping to snatch it out in a flash. Lycios slithered off the riding grounds, so he's got to be close by. Hearing a rustle, she peeked through the bushes and saw the massive neck of a top-tier monster. When the girl saw a lamia in its teeth, she realized it was eating its own kind, and the thought made her sick. With everything she had, Lady Rossley tried to convince herself she wasn't scared and couldn't just run. Gaining courage, she channeled all her energy through her sword and struck right at its core. Unbelievable, but through the monster's thick hide, the core actually became visible. Sophia was so caught up in her little victory that she didn't notice the monster move and got smacked hard in the back. With intense pain and blood, she fell to the ground, and the unrelenting Lycios loomed over her. No escape. His wound had already closed, though it's obvious regeneration shouldn't be that fast. Sophia had declared so loudly that she'd protect her captain, but now she just felt pathetic. Looked like it was game over, when out of nowhere, Lady Elaine showed up and unleashed all her power on the monster's core. Her strength is unmatched, and her burning desire to help her brother fuels this warrior maiden. Watching her fearlessness, Sophia couldn't believe her eyes, and had no clue how Elaine even got there. It seemed like a straight-up miracle when the Duke's attendant just shanked the monster in the neck. After landing that critical hit, the hero finally exhaled. She'd finally found Lycios' core. Suddenly, Elaine spotted Lady Sophia and wanted to know how she got here and if she was hurt. But that's not the problem right now. The real issue is that His Highness's condition is getting worse. Feeling unbelievably pathetic, Lady Rossley, defeated, let Elaine go, planning to follow her later. After coming all this way, saying she was going to save His Highness, she ends up getting wrecked like that. But the Duke's attendant told her to hop on her back. There's no way she can walk around okay with an injury like that. Meanwhile, Rehei was lost in his own head, totally out of it, not even knowing where he was. He felt like he was floating, but then he realized it was water when he heard someone laughing. The Duke felt like an idiot being stuck in the water. These snot-nosed kids saying he looked like a drowned rat. Staring him down, these rich brats were laughing, thinking he was into the monster. Seeing his little hands, Rehei knew these were childhood memories. He wasn't a monster, but there was no changing the minds of those laughing at him. In his classmates' eyes, he was the witch's kid. The Duke remembers that day, the king's birthday. He'd never forget it. It was the day of the biggest, most over-the-top festival of the year. That night, Walter burst into the young master's room, demanding to know who did this to him. Thinking the Lord was weird, the kid couldn't get why he was making such a sad face, looking at a waterlogged monster. Rehei knew a human didn't give him life. His mom brutally burned tens of thousands, 'cause he's a witch's son. Holding the young lord close, Walter declared that even if he's a witch's kid, it doesn't make him a monster. Wanting to hear it from someone else, the young heir also believed he was human, worthy of living. He just needed to hear it from the Lord, even when everyone was throwing stones. Walter desperately tried to defend him. Nevertheless, the hurt he felt was way worse, and nothing could dull that pain. Walter's the only one in this world on Rehei's side, and even though he's a monster, he's his only support. But it soon came out that Sir Walter had left the castle for good and vanished, disappeared from the young prince's world. Walter promised he'd be back soon. He said it before he left, said he needed to figure something out. He left in a hurry, looking serious, and the only thing that came back was news of his disappearance. After that, Rehei got accused of cowardly hiding behind that big, dumb knight. So, as Michael de Feline, the crown prince of Feline, saw it, Rehister was now all alone. The dumb kid didn't greet him in the hallway, and Michael demanded an apology, wanting the respect he deserved as heir. Right in front of all the servants, Rehei got slapped, even after apologizing. But it didn't end there. Michael kept hitting him in the face until he saw blood. To him, it was all fake, and Rehei's apology showed zero respect for the crown prince. As punishment, the prince beat the boy, who now had no one in the castle on his side. So, as Michael figured, Rehei better stay close to the floor if he didn't want to disappear like Walter. Right then, he knew that without Walter, he was just a kid who couldn't do anything, so he had to change. When Duke Feline was 14, assassins started coming after him, because he'd gotten strong enough to fight back. By the time he took control of Killiard, things had gotten so bad he needed a freaking bodyguard. Ron Benjamin, a smart and well-spoken young guy, became his personal knight. Rehei got tired of his eagerness sometimes, but he never regretted hiring him. But Ron's life was cut short. He died in an explosion. Since then, several of the young Duke's escorts have been assassinated. Each one died from something different. Strangulation, drowning, poison, suicide. It was like a curse. Anyone who tried to protect Rehei was doomed. He was scared the curse would spread again, so he didn't want anyone near him. He was dead set on keeping it that way, until that girl showed up out of nowhere. A girl named Elaine, who changed his destiny. Back when he was younger, Rehei asked Walter to tell him about Elaine, the one who ordered that sword. He hated everything about his mom, but seeing that sword changed his mind. From Walter's story, the kid learned that Elaine was an old friend of his mother's. She had light green eyes and long silver hair, and she was super cheerful and always smiling. When she was around Rehei, she couldn't stop laughing, and she always said she'd protect him his whole life. The Duke teared up at these thoughts, but seeing Elaine in front of him, he figured it was still a dream. Looking at her, the Lord couldn't understand why she had that expression on her face. Feeling a teardrop on his skin, Rehei wondered if this might not be the Elaine he knew. Turns out, he'd been poisoned with Lichios venom and passed out, but the antidote brought him back. Taking care of him all this time, Elaine couldn't relax until she saw him wake up. She told the Duke not to push himself, saying she'd explain everything after he'd fully recovered. Just as Milady was about to leave, Lord Rehei thanked her, saying it was the best reward for her work. Meanwhile, replaying everything in her head, Sophia wondered where that escort got her strength. Strength comparable to His Highness's, maybe even better, something he might not even suspect. Suddenly, a knock. Lady Elaine entered the ward to check on Lady Rossley's condition. The fact that the Duke was better, that the antidote worked, and he was now asleep truly pleased Sophia. Actually, the heroine had a request. She asked the girl to keep her skills a secret, the ones she used to floor Lichios, knowing that if she surpassed Rehei, the strongest knight, she'd draw attention, and everyone would know her face. Some people would remember her, and then Elaine's identity would be exposed when they saw she hadn't aged in 20 years. It was strange that Sophia wasn't her usual chatty self, but she agreed without question. The reason being, she was indebted to Milady, so she promised to say nothing, giving her knight's word. She also apologized for being so harsh, not knowing Lady Elaine's skills, just jealous of her position. Lady Rossley was the eldest daughter of a fallen earl's family, but 5 years ago, a monster invaded their village, and she was on the verge of death after losing her home and family. That's when His Highness saved their village, and with it, gave the girl a second chance at life. However, having lost her home and family, Sophia would have preferred to die rather than be saved and live with that pain. Then the Duke said her suffering wasn't a reason to die, because the living have to live. He didn't have a single family member left, no home he could return to. It happened when he was just a kid. There was a time when Rehei sat and cried like this girl, but he managed to get through that hell. A person who loses everything isn't easily broken, so he told her not to give in, that she still had a long life ahead of her. Sophia felt awkward crying like that in front of others, but she alone got support from the man she'd been cursing. Suzanne bursting into the room like that scared the crap out of them. He didn't expect Lady Sophia to be awake already. The heroine was totally speechless when she heard he had a couple of questions for her about Lycos. He heard she took down that huge monster all by herself, even though it was weakened from the Duke's attack. On top of that, Elaine swore she didn't take him down alone. Lady Sophia helped her out. That's when the girl confessed that it was true, that Lady Elaine did everything herself, breaking her knight's oath. Rossley did fight the monster, but was just a liability because of her injuries. She was ashamed of it. According to the Duke's escort, it was because of Rossley's help that she was able to handle Lycos, but Sophia was certain she was just in the way. She couldn't help because of her injuries, and then they had to carry her too. It seemed like they could argue forever. But the important thing is they made it back safe and sound. So, the Knights of Feline stayed at the Earl's mansion until Rehei recovered. One of the maids was stoked the monster got caught. Like everyone else, she'd noticed the mansion's vibe had been seriously messed up lately. Rumor had it Sylvia, who went missing, was back safe and sound. Good thing the Knights stepped in, or things could have gotten real bad. People were saying they were super competent, so the maids were hoping they'd stick around for a while. The girls were gossiping so much, they didn't even see the bloodthirsty beast suddenly charging at them. Spotting the bear right in front of them, they started screaming their heads off, ready to call for the Knights ASAP. Just then, the lady poked her head out from inside the bear suit. She apologized and asked them to point her to the kitchen. The Duke was poisoned by Likios, but the internal damage wasn't fatal. Any normal dude would have been dead in an hour. Thanks to the Silver Knight, the Master was spared from any serious injuries. Lady Elaine brought the ingredients. At first, the Lady Knight thought she'd just get herbs, but she managed to snag Likios's heart. Not knowing what happened to Lady Sophia, the girl said that Lady Elaine brought her back all wounded. Rehei knew his escort was good, but she was so damn good she took down Likios solo. But if she was that strong, her name would be all over the continent, and nobody's ever heard of a knight like her. Anyway, the doc told Rehei to chill out for a while and remember to take his meds. Since the Duke's checkup was done, Lady Elaine was nice enough to bring him some grub. It's bear stew, to help the captain recover faster. He's gotta love it. She even caught the bear herself. Figured it'd be a good way to get Rehei back in shape, so she cooked it up. Thing is, she didn't expect the rumors about her saving Lady Sophia and bringing back Likios's heart to reach the captain too. Panicked, Elaine said Lady Sophia helped her, that she was the one who first damaged Likios. Honestly, the Duke thought something was off about that girl the first time he saw her. Now he wants to know what she was doing before she joined the Feline Knights. Knowing Rehei was giving her the side-eye, she figured he'd clocked that she'd taken down Likios solo. Since Milady had a solid reason for staying quiet, the captain didn't push it and wrapped up the chat. Changing the subject, he complimented her cooking. Turns out Elaine learned from the guy she lived with as a kid. Not a parent, though. Her folks ditched her when she was just a little tyke. But there was someone who took her in, her savior, and she picked up her cooking skills from him. Hearing that, Rehei finally understood why the forms in her application were blank. Nobody'd ever done anything like that for him. But it sounded like Elaine's guardian genuinely cared. The Duke hasn't known this girl long, but he's already noticed her straightforward nature, which is rare, probably because she grew up under the wing of such an awesome dude. Suddenly hit by a flashback, she couldn't hold back the tears and just started bawling right in front of the captain. She couldn't tell him the truth, but damn, she wanted to scream it at the top of her lungs. The person who cared for Elaine, that truly good person, is Mother Rehei, but she had to say that person was dead, and now she's living by his will, so everything's fine now. Seeing Rehei ate everything, Milady promised to make more if he got sick again, but told him not to. Whatever she wants, the captain won't screw up again. More importantly, he told Milady not to be so reckless. Still, if he's ever in danger, Lady Elaine asked them not to stop her. She was being so stubborn. After Rehei woke up, the Feline Knights continued their investigation. No more survivors were found, but they did discover remains of the missing, which was reported to the Earl. Earl Wallendorf paid compensation and condolences to the families of the deceased, and the survivors thanked Rehei. Soon, during a casual conversation, the Duke suddenly noticed a rustling in the bushes that scared away the birds. Bursting out of nowhere, that crazy little thing leaped right at the captain. Turns out it wasn't some wild mountain beast, just a cat. Though how it got here is weird. Rehei and Elaine just exchanged a look, and they both knew. It was Beatrice, the one that went missing. The Count was over the moon that his little girl was found, and that they took care of Licious, so he threw a banquet. Spotting Elaine at the banquet, Cezanne pointed to the Count, who was just lounging in his chair, all lazy. The knight was convinced he threw this whole banquet for his cat, not for the knights. Shoving him aside, Lady Sophia offered Milady some young veal shank. She usually gets mad when she can't eat, but she's being all nice, so Cezanne thought it was strange. Right then, Duke Filion suddenly bolted past everyone and rushed outside. He said there was no need to follow him, but Elaine decided to get some fresh air too. Spring's finally starting to show its face. You can see buds popping on the trees. It's March already, so it's getting warmer every single day. Elaine was thinking, wouldn't it be cool if the Duke threw a festival when all the flowers bloom? He mentioned they have a flower and butterfly festival in Killiard every March, so it's gotta be starting soon. Without even realizing it, our girl knew she had to go get Saturain earlier. She told him she wanted to take a week off when she got back, since her adjustment period was over. After getting the Duke's okay, she felt kinda bad leaving and asked him if he liked fireworks. Just the thought of fireworks took Rehei back to when he was a kid, and those other kids would pick on him, calling him the witch's son under the exploding lights. Out of nowhere, Elaine magicked up some fireworks, and looking at that beauty, the Duke realized he actually did like them. Seems like the perfect time to get the captain his birthday present, hoping he'll dig it. Elaine found out about it from Sir Loyard, but Rehei was so busy he forgot all about it. He didn't even notice the brooch she gave him was beat up. To him, it was the perfect gift. When he promised to wear it, he couldn't figure out why this girl was being so nice to him. Turns out the reason was incredibly simple. Lady Elaine just wanted His Highness to be happy. People wanted the witch's son to suffer, just as much as those who fell victim to the witch. But things have changed now. Though the Duke tried to push those thoughts out of his head, the attendant asked if he liked fireworks. Now he was ready to say, yeah, he did. They're sparks. Now that moment from his old memories was clearer. Maybe fireworks aren't so bad. A few days later, Feline's knights returned to Killiard. Elaine's contributions were highly praised among the knights. After returning, the Duke felt like the paperwork was endless. It hadn't been that long since he got back. Rehei was lost without Lady Elaine. He needed a distraction, or he'd never get the festival budget sorted. He's useless like this. While he was stuck in Valandor, a ton of work piled up. Come to think of it, Lady Elaine got her award and immediately took off on vacation. She'll be back before the festival, though. Out of nowhere, Lord Lovell asked him to escort her. Apparently, she said she'd invite the Duke to go with her. Just then, someone came to see the Duke. Hilarister was finally back from her expedition. Meanwhile, Elaine, hunting for that ingredient, found it. The place hadn't changed a bit. She was worried it might be gone, but everything worked out great. Now it's time to head back. Lady Rister really killed it on the expedition. All the monsters in the Duke's designated area are gone. But even this time, they couldn't find him. It's been 10 years since he disappeared. Before he left, Walter couldn't say for sure how long his journey would take. He did promise everything would be revealed when the time was right. Said there was nothing to worry about. Just in case he didn't make it back, Walter left Hill in charge of looking after the young prince. There's a lot of shady stuff about Walter's disappearance. He left Rehei with Hill like he knew he might vanish. Killiard got so crowded in just 1 week, it's scary to think how many people will be here on festival day. Looking at the Knights' squad uniforms, the heroine realized she was seeing these faces for the first time. Lady Sophia noticed her right away, since today's Elaine's first day back from her vacation. Sophia told her that these knights had just arrived from a long expedition. The knights were happy to see the newbie, until they found out she was His Highness's escort. The guys were sure His Highness would never appoint a newbie to be his escort. Stepping in, Sophia told them not to jump to conclusions about Lady Elaine, 'cause she took down Lycius all by herself. After crushing those knights, a smug Rossley wanted to know how Elaine's vacation went, and if she got any rest. Like always, Suzanne barged in mid-conversation. He missed her so much, he had to know when she got back. He would have announced it if he knew she was here, but his timing couldn't have been worse. In the hallway, the dude bumped into His Highness, who looked super busy since the festival's almost here. When there was a knock on the door, the Duke figured it was Lovell, but his beautiful attendant was standing in his office instead. Thanks to the captain, Elaine had a great vacation, but she feels bad. He was so busy while she was gone. Since she's going to the festival as a knight, Rehei let her have that day off too. He wasn't planning on going himself. He's got too much work to finish, ain't got the time. But then she suddenly asked him to go with her, saying 1 day off won't kill him. As for the work, she's been learning to help the captain since today, so they can finish up fast together. Rehei joked about refusing at first, but Lovell already told him the lady wanted to tag along. So, he couldn't say no. Elaine figured he'd take it back after hearing that. Normally, the Duke wouldn't go, but a little downtime with his people wouldn't hurt. Elaine dressed up special for the festival, but she's clueless about clothes, so she asked Sophia for advice. She thought her outfit looked ridiculous, but Rehei thought it looked great on her. Once inside the festival, the Duke noticed there were more people this year than last. Suddenly grabbing his hand and staring him right in the eyes, Elaine asked him not to let go. As she pulled him along, the Duke thought she shouldn't overdo it, since she's the one who's supposed to be holding on. In that moment, the heroine thought it was weird. She didn't know if Rehei's back had always been that broad. The place they ended up was amazing. So many street vendors, and everything smelled delicious. Elaine couldn't resist grabbing some food, and Rehei even told her to get whatever she wanted. She came back with a ton of stuff, but it was hard to believe she'd eat it all herself. Among all the goodies, she got the captain a kebab stick. loaded with spices. The meat was way too salty. Walter never let Rehei eat stuff like that, saying it's bad for him. Suddenly, Elaine spotted something interesting behind him and suggested they go check it out. They were welcomed at the festival shooting gallery, who totally assumed they were a young couple. They offered them a game where the grand prize was a huge teddy bear, perfect as a gift. That sounded cool enough that the Duke agreed, asking Lady Elaine to give it a shot with him. Thanks to his natural gift, Rehei, the strongest knight, nailed every dart right in the bullseye. Not believing people like that actually existed, the owner handed over the prize. He enjoyed watching them compete that much. When Lady Elaine decided to give the Duke the bear, Rehei protested, "'Cause he'd won it for her." These two lovebirds were creating such a scene that they got kicked out of the carnival game and told to take it outside. So they agreed that whoever won rock, paper, scissors would get the prize. And looks like Elaine took the W. And even though she really wanted to give the prize to the Duke, she'd already given him a gift, and he was good with that. Saying to think of the toy as paying him back a debt, His Highness suggested they just keep moving. On the way, the heroine was bugged by the thought that everyone thought she and Rehei were, like, a thing. He's still basically her little nephew, but it's understandable people get the wrong idea since they're about the same age. Lost in her thoughts about it, she almost got run over by a cart if the Duke hadn't pulled her close. Wanting to show her something cool too, he suggested they head to a more secluded spot. This unbelievably beautiful place, covered in marigolds, felt like a dream you never wanted to wake up from. Rehei stumbled on this sweet spot by pure chance, but it's been a total emotional roller coaster since. Soaking in this view, Elaine wished they were all here together. Bella, Lloyd, and Esme. Unlike Bella and Lloyd, Esme vanished without a trace, and she doesn't even know if he's alive. Lloyd's convinced he couldn't have died. Being a demon, he'd definitely survive even major injuries. At first, she thought Esme was watching over Rehei, but it looks like Rehei has no clue Esme even exists. It's getting late, so the Duke suggested they head back as soon as possible. Even if it seems hopeless, as long as they're alive, they'll meet up with Esme someday. While they were gone, some stuff went down. The master was seriously ticked off finding out the Duke was MIA. Lovell told the guy to chill and explain himself, but just then, Rehei's master walked in. Looking at the guy begging for help, His Highness recognized him as that Rister butler. "We got a problem. Lady Hilla's little brother, young Master Edwin, has been kidnapped." The heartbroken butler, crushed by the loss, was tearing himself apart with grief, collapsing to the ground in tears. Only after downing a glass of water could he calm down enough for His Highness to ask him to explain everything. It happened yesterday. The sun was almost setting, so Chase told Master Edwin it was time to head back. Edwin Rister, Earl Rister, loaded up with groceries, agreed to return, the time having flown by. He bought all that stuff for his little sister, who's coming home soon. She's been out searching for their father for days. Figuring she hasn't been eating well, Edwin wanted to greet her with a delicious meal he'd make himself. Plus, today's the first-year anniversary of him becoming Earl, and he wanted to show off how well he's been running things without Jackson's help. But Chase still remembers how he screwed up last time, because he didn't have any help. Just as Edwin was saying how he's still too young, the two of them were surrounded by a terrifying gang of thugs. This kid, this Mr. Edwin, they've really taken a liking to him, since they thought he was Hilla Rister's brother. When Chase heard the mercenary offer the young Earl to come with him, he didn't hesitate to put his sword to the guy's throat. The knight wasn't having any of that arrogance, and told the dude to get away from the Earl. Trying to protect the young master, Chase took a magic electric shock, like his whole system short-circuited. The young Earl screamed in terror, about to rush to help, but the mercenary ordered him to stop. With a sword that conducts electricity, the mercenary was ready to kill the knight by cranking up the voltage if Edwin moved an inch. Now, the kid was told to drop everything he was holding and go with the thug to save the knight. Chase desperately tried to stop the kid, but it was all for nothing. Before leaving, the killer tossed him a message and told him to give it to Lady Hilla. If she doesn't want to see her brother's dead body, she's got to bring Lich de Feline to the specified location within a week. So, according to Rister's butler, Chase came too late, got back to the mansion, and handed over this note. Lady Hilla's planning a rescue mission for her brother. Lady Hilla asked him to keep it secret, said it was too dangerous to tell anyone. But the butler couldn't keep something like this quiet. It sounded insane. Elaine couldn't figure out the connection between these thugs and Lady Hilla, or why they kidnapped anyone to begin with. The butler didn't know either, but in the note, they identified themselves as the Galloid Mercenaries. 2 years back, Duke Filliard was asked to take out a band of thieves, and they've been holding a grudge ever since. Lady Hilla was with him back then, so it's clear they're trying to get to him through her. Hearing the butler mention that Walter was missing, Elaine just couldn't believe it. Having decided not to kill those hunting him, Duke Filliard decided to set out at dawn together to search for Earl Edwin. The next morning, with the butler in tow, the Duke showed up at the Rister mansion, catching Lady Rister completely off guard. Finding out Jackson spilled the beans, she was absolutely furious, especially after she told him to keep it quiet. Little did the lady know, Rehei thought he should have been told about this way sooner. Despite Hilla's worries, the Duke was in, because if he didn't go, the Earl would be in danger. As far as he knew, Lady Rossley was summoned to a place that used to be a prison, filled with surveillance experts. If Rehei doesn't go, Hilla's at risk of getting caught immediately. Then they'll kill her and the hostage, Edwin. And then she'll become the hostage, and the Mercs will demand Duke Fillion Killiard show up. They're holding a grudge against him, and will do anything to get to him. But Hilla promised to protect him until his dad's back. Her only fear is not knowing what might happen while he's gone, and not knowing which face she'll see afterwards. The truth is, Walter wouldn't want his kids dying at his request. And the lady knew that well. Walter Rister, Hilla Rister. Lady Hilla was Sir Walter's daughter. Elaine wasn't close to them, so she barely remembers them. 20 years ago, they were close with Lloyd and the commander of the Royal Knights. So, Hilla made the Duke promise that if his life was ever in danger, he'd run, and forget about her and her brother. But Lady Elaine cut in, saying she had people looking out for her safety already. Sir Fillion had totally spaced on introducing Lady Elaine to his bodyguard. She was super pleased to meet her. Hilla couldn't believe he'd hired the same woman who'd applied for security duty at the ceremony. As for the Haloid mercenaries, they definitely scattered after chatting with the Phillies Knights. There were tons of people at that meeting the other day, and rumor has it, some of them had magic gadgets. Problem is, that's not the kind of weapon just anyone can use, so it's weird these low-life thugs have it. If nothing's changed, everything should be like on the map, the one where Hilla found that old, but still usable, prison. That's when the heroes decided to break down the map and come up with a rescue plan. Turns out, the reason Edwin got snatched was because his sister works for the famous Rehei de Fillion. It's not rocket science to figure out he's the son of the witch who caused the Seneca incident. According to the Merc, after his dad died because of the witch, he got burned all over and hired a bunch of guys after surviving. But that witch's kid, all grown up, scattered those Mercs. His mom and that kid ruined the boss's life. He couldn't undo the past, but he could still get some justice. But when Edwin said it wasn't his problem, the goon got pissed and clocked him one right in the face. He was convinced the kid was involved, since his sister works for that lowlife. The boss didn't want to touch the kid, since he's a hostage, but he didn't think he and his sister thought they were doing the wrong thing. Telling Edwin not to sweat it, the Merc was sure nobody ever died from losing an eye. Out of nowhere, they got word that someone broke in and they're trying to ID them now. Of course, Tarrenton was betting it was the kid's sister, and if Reha's got the same attitude, they came together. Lucky for the young Earl, his sister didn't bail on him, but he shouldn't get cocky just yet. And definitely no stupid moves until they catch the Duke. Judging by the map, Earl Edwin's either being hidden in the prison's main block or in the West Wing. Splitting up, Rehei and Elaine decided to head to the West Building, while Hill and her crew went to the main block. Inside the West Building, our heroes split up again. Elaine went left, but the Earl wasn't there. They met up at the end of the hall, but still no sign of the kid. Like he ain't even in this building. Our girl knew they had to find the hostage before they got caught. He's in danger until they defuse that bomb. Just as they decided to check the upper floor, they suddenly heard a strange voice coming from around the corner. Scared out of their minds, they tried to bolt, but they didn't get far before they hit a dead end. Meanwhile, back at the main block, the Knights turned up empty, and they couldn't reach the others either. In that case, Hill decided to search the warehouse, sending her squad to search the admin building. Hoping her brother was being held in this building, the girl boldly threw open the door. Instantly, she was attacked, face to face with a life-threatening situation. Seeing the girl alone, the mercenary was surprised the Duke wasn't there, but he didn't really have time to deal with her. Hilla didn't have time for him either, so she demanded to know where her brother was, pressing her sword to his throat. In that instant, the assassin grabbed the sword with his bare hand, and the girl felt a jolt of electricity course through her, her hand badly burned. Now, the bastard was hoping she'd finally tell him where the Duke was. Elaine and Rehei were almost caught, but together they managed to fight off a couple of mercenaries. Suddenly, a strange sound echoed. A warning of some kind. Maybe they caught Hilla. Hearing the news of the invasion, the heroine didn't know what to do. They still hadn't caught the Earl. The Duke had no choice but to become bait for them and get rid of them, so Elaine could find the Earl. So the heroine decided to become the bait herself. But these guys are hunting for Rehei now. Lady figured her being around would slow them down, so she agreed, but still told the captain to be careful. Elaine booked it out of there, trying to stay calm, figuring the count might be on the top floor. Focusing hard, she pinpointed the source of the cries for help. Behind a wall, she found a hidden entrance, leading to a secret door, and who knows what else. Meanwhile, seeing the Duke, the Galoid mercenaries took off after him, but he was just too damn fast. He managed to pull ahead, and along the way, he suddenly spotted a building that wasn't on any map. Deciding to check it out, Rehei busted inside and headed down the stairs till he heard screaming. Down there, in the prison cells, scared and broken people were ready to do anything they were told. But the guy with the eye scar, a real sadist, showed no mercy to anyone who crossed his path. As he was about to get wasted, the guy wanted to know how the Duke felt watching someone like him bite the dust. The mercenary waited a long time for this, keeping himself busy to kill time. He was sick of it, since finding someone who looked alike and kidnapping him was an expensive hobby. Black hair, pale skin, violet eyes. To the assassin, the Duke was just plain hideous. After getting away with those crimes, the mercenary wanted to know if the Duke would mind if the same thing happened to Edwin. To keep this bastard from committing any more evil deeds, Rehei dropped his sword and surrendered, guilty. Face down, bowing before his greatness. That's how the guy wanted to see the cursed witch's son. Now that the fish was hooked, he could finally get his revenge. Seeing Edwin in the basement, Elaine couldn't believe how cruelly they were treating the kid. She was with Lady Hilla and came to rescue him, but the kid, enraged, ordered her to get out immediately. You can't go near him, it's way too dangerous. He's got a bomb strapped to his neck. Even though he was terrified the bomb would blow, Milady decided to get closer and check it out. Turns out, the only way to crack this thing open is with brute force. Even a pro mage would need a ton of time. Elaine thought for a second, then decided to use her magic to disarm the bomb. Just like that, it was done. The bomb vanished, which Edwin just couldn't believe. A device that only magic can destroy? Some mages and masters can't even control outside magic like that. The only reason she could destroy it was because of the powers Bella gave her. After freeing the young Earl from those cruel criminals, she said she'd done this before, and it was time to head back. Now the mercenary was looking down on the Duke. But Rehei just thought he was funny and smiled. This bastard was killing innocent people, thinking it was Duke Feline. That wasn't enough, so he went after his subordinate's family. All that showed was how terrified he was to deal with His Majesty in person. That pissed the thug off so bad, he figured the Duke was clueless, so he hit the bomb's trigger. But when nothing happened, the guy started freaking out, thinking something went wrong and the button broke. Truth is, Filine's minion already defused the bomb and bailed, so pushing the button ain't gonna do jack. The reality is, Rehei got the signal. They found the hostage on the top floor of the East building and disarmed the bomb. It's not hard to guess what the mercenary was gonna do now. His whole life he'd dreamed of killing that witch's cursed son. Waiting for the perfect moment, the Duke snapped the iron shackles and lunged at his enemy. He used a close-quarters combat move and tossed the thug over his shoulder, scaring the crap out of him. Slamming into the ground, the guy couldn't believe it and didn't understand how the Duke pulled that off. Those handcuffs were weak. They should have made him from something tougher if they were planning on catching His Majesty. The gang members immediately charged, drawing their swords to grab the Duke. But they all instantly fell before the might and power of the Killiard Empire's unmatched, strongest knights. The fearless warriors restored order, though Hilla still had to apologize for being late. Rehist said they arrived just in time. Now it was time to tie up these thugs, drag them outside, and bind them. Finally, the whole Haloid gang's here. There were others involved, but they've already been dealt with. Regarding Hilla's hand, she said she messed up a little during the fight against the magic weapon. Just as they realized Count Edwin was missing, a voice echoed from the woods, and Elaine appeared on the horizon. Through her own strength and the bravery of her escort, she managed to find Edwin and bring him back safe and sound. While searching the top floor, she found a secret room. She found him there, removed the bomb from his neck, and saved him. Even though there were injuries on his neck, the boy insisted he was okay. It was just a scratch, and the bruise was from the rope. Holding her little brother tight, Hilla felt guilty for not finding him sooner. The important thing is he's okay now. She could say she was just late because she was prepping his rescue. Anyway, everyone's safe, so it's time to head home. They're all waiting for us. After Rehei and his guys rescued Edwin and the commoners, he went straight back to the mansion and got patched up. But Elaine didn't know what to do about the scar on his otherwise perfect face. The Duke didn't know where to look when she kept insisting on slathering cream on it. Just then, Lady Hilla and her little brother Edwin walked in. She came to express her gratitude. Edwin was grateful for yesterday. He couldn't imagine the danger he'd be in if Lady Elaine hadn't found him. He was also thankful to His Majesty for coming to his sister's aid. But Rehei didn't need the thanks. The kid was in that mess because of him, and Elaine just helped out. Okay, honestly, Hilla didn't think Elaine could be the Duke's escort at first, but now she gets why he picked her. Right now, she was totally ready to wish that brave girl all the best, from the bottom of her heart. Figuring nobody had eaten yet, and they were all starving, like family, Edwin wanted to really thank them right. So, they all agreed to finally grab some food. Their mission was finally a success. It's only been a few days since the kidnapping case wrapped up, and our hero's back in Killiard. A carrier pigeon showed up, saying that Nathan's research on the magic circle. From the letter, Elaine knew her lord was planning to meet over lunch to talk about the research results. Realizing it was finally over, she was going to pack things up quick and head out to make it to lunch. Just then, Duke Feline walked into the room. Nothing was wrong, he just popped in for a second. He just had a special gift ready, and it's really important to him. So, Rehei mentioned the old guard before, and Elaine figured he meant Walter. If Walter hadn't saved the Earl, he'd never forgive himself. He'd be ashamed if Walter came back, and the Earl was gone. He didn't want to lose someone again because of his mistake. Anyway, this is a gift from His Majesty, hoping Elaine will like it. After he left, she remembered she didn't have time for this, so she tossed it in a drawer and bolted. She arrived on time, but Nathan was nowhere to be found in the crowd. But suddenly, Elaine spotted the blonde kid trying to buy a single fruit for a gold coin. She snuck up on him so fast, Nathan nearly jumped out of his skin. Turns out, he really needed that fruit, and they were about to rip him off big time. Handing the vendor a copper coin, hoping that price would do, she told him to stop scamming tourists. Guys like him give Killiard a bad name, and that'll come back to bite him in the ass. When they arrived, Elaine suggested Nathan they swap the item in a private room so no one would spot them. The missing piece that the mage so desperately wanted was finally in his grasp. Seeing how stoked he was, the girl finally asked him to show her the research results. Nathan brought up some traits among existing magic that the girl had mentioned before. All the heroine could remember was a vertical eye. Magical circles can do that, but it wasn't what she was looking for. Suddenly, a small scrap fell out of the papers as he read, and the heroine froze after seeing it. She was holding the exact magic circle she'd been searching for. Nathan couldn't believe what he was hearing. He'd been debating whether to bring her or not, but he did. This circle vanished ages ago. Turns out, it's a magic circle that could conquer the entire continent. But before doing anything, the sorcerer wanted to clear the air and figure out what the hell Lady Elaine was all about. Like he said, this is some ancient magic. Most wizards don't even know about it, but this girl does. According to the hero, she asked for this, even though she knew jack about it. And even if she did, she couldn't use it. So, the wizard says it's mind control magic, the kind that has zero limits. Controlling everything, it can get dangerous if it's used by the wrong dude, or if someone's careless with it, everyone suffers. Bella's eyes weren't always like that. Just like Elaine thought, Bella was under someone's influence. Anyway, finding info on this magic is tough, but what's clear is, the ritual circle uses the blood of an evil dragon. Even though they're extinct now, that evil energy is super strong, so it's perfect for curses. If it's an evil dragon, then Elaine wants to make another deal with Nathan. As soon as she heard evil dragon, something clicked in her head. 20 years back, the royal family tried to control an evil dragon. They sent a squad to take it down. So, 4 royal families were involved. Lloyd and Bella, the second and third princes, and King Chelsea the first. Chelsea's the shadiest, but they vanished after the Seneca incident, same with Lloyd. That leaves the prince and princess. Prince Chelsea de Filion took the throne after the previous king, and Lloyd died. But the third prince is a duke now, and he absolutely hated Bella. To figure out what really happened, Elaine needs the Dragon Subjugation Squad roster, but all the originals are gone. While she was thinking about finding them, she suddenly bumped into some old buddies from the Night Order. Sophia just wanted to hang with the guy, and Suzanne ran into her on the way back from sword repair. That's why they're together. Duke Filion showed up out of nowhere, happy to see them all together. He was actually looking for Suzanne. Turning to him and Lady Elaine, Rehei asked them to step into his office for a second. Just hearing that the Margrave's making a contract, and they need to buy lumber for repairs, made Suzanne's face twist up. Laker's wood is the strongest. That's why the Duke wanted to meet with them, but they insisted on seeing Suzanne. Clearly, the knight got here with the Margrave's backing, and now the captain wanted to know what was up. Either way, the Duke wanted the kid to tag along. even if he's uncomfortable, because this deal's important. The next day, when they set out, it got way too damn cold on the road. Seeing Suzanne looking like crap, Elaine decided to ask about the stopped shipments from the north. The Duke didn't know why, but about a year ago, shipments slowed down and recently just stopped altogether. Since it's hurting trade, Lord Feline was planning to pay them a visit. When they arrived, Margrave Lakers, the owner of Lakers, greeted them. As soon as the Margrave noticed Suzanne, saying it's been a while, the kid visibly slumped. Time to head into the mansion. The Lakers are an old family, living way up north, in this land ruled by an evil dragon. The Lakers family is always on guard, making sure it doesn't wake up. Everyone knows the Lakers are famous for their top-notch support, acting as a shield for the people. McGraw suggested we discuss the deal here, even though Miss Lakers usually handles the lumber trade. Sir Lakers says she's not feeling well, so he's filling in for her today. Miss Lakers is a young woman who, rumor has it, held immense power in society, but they say she vanished a year ago. Suddenly, as a maid was carrying tea, she tripped on the edge of the rug and lost her balance, falling towards Lady Elaine. Luckily, the girl wasn't burned thanks to her clothes. She just asked permission to step away for a moment. The maid was instructed to accompany Milady, and she couldn't stop apologizing the entire way. She wanted to prepare a change of clothes, but Elaine told her to just bring a plain towel and leave her alone. The girl was glad that Rehei had her own business here, because she also needed to find something. The Lakers are a leading clan from the north, and they needed the list of those who arrived in the northern mountains. 20 years ago, the team that conquered the evil dragon would have handed that list over to the Lakers. The heroine was so obsessed with finding that list, she bumped right into the Lord in the hallway. She apologized immediately, but seeing his face, she knew this wasn't gonna be a friendly chat. The grumpy young dude figured she was so shy, she couldn't even look him in the eye. Leaving the jerk behind, Elaine tried to bail, but he stopped her and demanded a real apology. Hearing nothing back, the Lord decided she probably had ear problems too, so he repeated that she should apologize. Not even knowing who he was, the bold girl declared that he should apologize too, since he ran into her. Just then, the Duke's voice echoed. His attendant hadn't returned, so Rehei came looking for her. Seeing Licht there, Sir Feline couldn't figure out what the girl was doing hanging around the Crown Prince. The Crown Prince tried to find out why they were here, but Rehei shut him down, saying they had business to take care of. Licht, seeing that as arrogant, pressed him to elaborate. He pointed out that Duke Feline comes from a humble and messed up family, but still acts high and mighty. Plus, the prince thought his people needed some training since the girl keeps saying she doesn't want to apologize. Just then, Suzanne and Margrave Lakers showed up in the hallway, and he was surprised to see the prince. Licht's still just showing up here unannounced, so the Margrave needs to keep the promise he made. Since Lord Lakers is busy today, the Crown Prince ordered him to bring Lady Juliana here. He was sure she wasn't in so much pain that she couldn't talk about the engagement. The Crown Prince has come here 5 times in 3 months, but nothing's getting better. The Margrave keeps blocking him from seeing Juliana, like she's actually that sick. The truth about Lady Juliana not wanting to get engaged to the prince hit him like a ton of bricks. Old man Lakers figured Licht just wanted to marry his daughter to get his hands on the North's resources. His daughter's a smart and kind kid. She ain't blinded by power. Thinking she was just some dumb broad, the Crown Prince got pissed, but decided to leave the palace without a word. After their meeting, the Margrave was worried, so he said he needed to step out for a second. Right now, all Rehei cares about is making sure Lady Elaine doesn't get hurt. Since everything's cool, they decided to head back to the room, 'cause the madam's gonna be here soon. That's when she noticed something was off with Suzanne, but she didn't know what was going on. The second they walked in, Miss Lakers just started screaming like a banshee. It was terrifying to watch her lose it. Hearing the girl order them to bring the Crown Prince to her, Suzanne broke a sweat and froze up completely. He hit the floor hard, like he was in a daze, right in front of Lady Lakers, who was completely out of her mind and covered in blood. She glared at him, her eyes full of malice and treachery. Finally, the piece of trash was back. Picking up a shard of glass, she decided to find out what was up with that paradise he'd crawled out of. To her, Suzanne was always like this, a pathetic guy who could only ever hide. Waving the shard at him, Juliana, completely unhinged, demanded to know why he was here if he couldn't take care of things. Repenting for his mortal sin, Suzanne apologized and bowed his head. Just then, the Margrave told his daughter to stop it. He'd called for this young man to help them. Juliana couldn't believe her ears. Her own father had called him. Called that idiot again, who couldn't take care of anything. According to Lord Lakers, they couldn't keep blaming Suzanne so much. It wasn't his fault what happened. But it wasn't just his fault. It was the Margraves too, the one who killed Caesar with his own bare hands. After Juliana blamed her dad for all this, she just collapsed. The maid freaked and rushed over to her. So, Mr. Lakers told the maid to clean up the mess and get the girl to her bedroom. Normally, Duke Feline wouldn't get involved in personal stuff, but he figured this whole forest business thing was connected to this incident. Hearing that, Mr. Lakers said he couldn't keep it a secret anymore. It took a while for Suzanne to calm down, but now he was finally ready to spill everything himself. Before he started with all that, he wanted to talk about the family dynamics. Suzanne Weston had an older brother, 5 years older to be exact, named Caesar. Their folks were knights in this mansion, but they both went on a mission and died young, killed by demons. Marquis Lakers adopted the boys and let them call him Dad. It was a beacon of hope in their eyes, a helping hand guiding them toward the future. After that, Suzanne and his brother wanted to become knights to pay her back, so the two of them started escorting Juliana. Then, during training, Suzanne's sword suddenly flew out of his hand. Turns out he was weaker than his brother. Caesar always told him not to close his eyes, but he was still shocked that he actually had some decent skills. Asking if he was scared, Suzanne said he might have accidentally closed his eyes. The older brother was also scared, but he was even more terrified that Suzanne might turn his back on him. Caesar was always the brave one, always guiding his younger brother. The lady really cared about them. The three of them spent their whole childhood together. Those were precious moments. But a year ago, something happened. Some unexpected stuff went down, and Suzanne got spooked. It was the day they started developing the forest. Since Juliana was in charge of the logging business, she had to be there. The brothers were escorting her while she worked, when they suddenly found a rotting tree and started to cut it down. But just as they were about to chop it down, bam! This thing shows up, a monster bigger and badder than the tree itself. The forest creature immediately attacked the people. Anyone bitten by the monster went crazy, attacking others and spreading the infection. That's when Caesar stepped up, telling Juliana to evacuate the people while he dealt with the monster. Now Caesar was facing a huge challenge, staying calm during his first real fight. But he was overwhelmed by the sight of the corpses, panicked, thinking his parents died the same way. The kid couldn't fight. He decided to run, but the monster immediately came after him. To protect his brother from a killing blow, Caesar shielded him with his body and plunged his sword into the monster. But his mind started to cloud over. His eyes lost their spark. The boy apologized to his family one last time. A moment later, Caesar transformed into a bloodthirsty monster. But his family thought it was just a joke. That day, his blood was spilled before everyone's eyes. Juliana and Cezanne lost their brother forever. After the Margrave offed his own eldest son, that monster vanished into the woods, and they couldn't find it anywhere. They gathered up all the bodies, including the older brothers, and headed back home. Ever since then, Juliana hasn't left her room, and with his father's backing, Suzanne got transferred to the Files Knights. Overwhelmed by those heavy memories, the guy decided he had to get away for a bit. Watching him, the Margrave realized he'd screwed up big time. He thought it would be better if Suzanne joined the Files Knights, but he was dead wrong. Thanking the guests for coming, Lord Lakers suggested they stay the night, seeing as it was getting late. That's when Rehei suddenly said he was ready to do whatever it took if they needed help. Elaine never would have guessed Suzanne had been through something like that, so she figured he just needed to be left alone. The Duke agreed he needed some space, so he suggested they all head to their rooms and get some rest. That night, Juliana stared for a long time at her expensive pendant, where her beloved Caesar would forever live on in her memory. She suddenly called out to her maid and asked what she'd do if someone took away the thing she loved most. The kid was timid, so she'd probably just grumble about it if that happened. But her ladyship preferred revenge. Even the weak get a shot at it. All the drama from earlier made things trickier. It's nighttime now, so our girl's gotta be careful. Her only obstacle is the 2 guards watching the room at the entrance. But even that wasn't a problem for Elaine. She was gonna use a sleep-inducing scent. But when someone suddenly grabbed her shoulder, she felt her heart leap into her throat. Seeing Suzanne, she was a little thrown. He just wanted to know what she was doing here so late. To cover her tracks, Lady Elaine had to lie, saying she couldn't sleep and decided to take a walk. Suzanne actually had the same thing. It helps him. So he decided to take a walk too. He barely got the nerve to ask something when suddenly there was this loud, terrifying noise. Panicked, the knight rushed into his sister's room and saw his father crying. Turns out, Juliana was gone. Drowning in tears, the maid started blaming herself for not checking on her sooner. When she went in, the window was already open and it was freezing. The girl tried to find her, not knowing what Juliana was thinking. Elaine figured they needed to find her ASAP, not point fingers. Duke Feline came to see what was going on because of the loud scream. After hearing from the attendant that Juliana had disappeared, he decided to find her as quickly as possible. Just then, the knight yelled out. They'd found Lady Laker's shoe. The knight checked out the spot where the shoe was and found tracks leading north. Meanwhile, Juliana was pushing herself through the freezing snow, driven only by thoughts of Cesar. Just a year ago, the blossoming Miss Lakers never would have dreamed of obeying her uncle. No matter how hard he tried to marry her off, she'd always be loyal to Cesar. He was her everything, but those stubborn elders were against them, trying to stop them, saying they weren't a good match. She didn't give a damn, though. She listened to her heart and swore Caesar would be a part of the Lakers family. After all, she'd done everything she could for him, and he wanted to spend his whole life with her in return. He loved her, and she promised to be with him forever. Those memories burned in her soul and tore at her heart. Tears blurred her vision, and she tripped over some rocks, collapsing into the freezing snow with a bloody leg. Just then, she saw the shadow of a monster looming over her. Finally, she'd found the bastard she'd been hunting. Caesar was lonely, but he wouldn't have to wait long. Juliana was going to kill that monster and be with her love. Clutching that magic dynamite to her chest, she squeezed her eyes shut, ready to meet Caesar. But then, out of nowhere, salvation arrived. Brave Caesar grabbed her and dragged her to safety. The second they were clear, the monster struck, but it slammed into the ground instead. Right now, all Caesar cared about was making sure the lady was safe. The Duke showed up, ready to handle things, ordering them to cover Lady Juliana and make sure she didn't bolt. Instantly, Cerulean drew his sword and charged the bloodthirsty monster that had disturbed humanity's peace. Either way, it's too dangerous here. So, Caesar suggested his sister come back to the mansion with him. He got a slap in the face, and Juliana's anger in return, for butting in. She didn't want anyone worrying about her. Whether she lived or died without Cesar, there was no point in living, no reason to go back. Also, being the younger brother of a fallen hero, Caesar couldn't take it anymore, and admitted he was sad too. Truth is, he hates this life. Every day's just a string of regrets, that helpless feeling from when his brother died, the guilt of his dad and sister suffering, the constant nightmares. It's all messed up, but the kid keeps going. The only reason he's still alive is because his brother gave his life for him. That's why Juliana can't give up. She has to keep living. If she's gone too, Caesar doesn't think he could ever forgive himself. Just then, the bloodthirsty forest lord snuck up from behind, but she managed to warn her brother. Without thinking, the brave knight grabbed her and took off, trying to help. Juliana tossed an explosive in midair. Seeing that magic explosive, Elaine's gonna be in shock if it goes off. The second she grabbed it, she felt a pain in her arm. The monster attacked and smacked her hand hard. Seeing that, Duke Feline went ballistic and charged, swinging his sword and cutting the monster in half. He bolted towards his companion, full speed, making sure she was okay. The girl confidently said she was fine, but glancing at her hand, she noticed the wound was gone. When the Duke tried to check her injury, Elaine pushed him away, so he decided to find out why she was hiding it. She always looks after him, and Rehei wanted to take care of her too, but it seemed like the girl was afraid of something. Hearing the knight's voices in the distance, the heroine ran off, promising to return and heal her own wounds. The day after the fight with the monster, Juliana woke up at noon. The first thing she asked about was the monster, and then Lord Feline told her it was dead. Not believing it died so easily, even after getting revenge, the girl still feels despair. The monster that killed Cesar died in one unexpected moment. Suddenly, Lady Elaine held out something she'd picked up in the forest yesterday. Looks like it belongs to Miss Lakers. Seeing the ring on the chain, so familiar it hurt, Juliana clutched it to her chest and burst into tears. It was Cesar's. Not sure if she even had the right. The heroine begged her to move on with her life. Marquis Lakers and Caesar took off the second they heard the girl was missing, and they looked just as wrecked as she felt. They had that look on their faces, like something precious had vanished in an instant. They're all suffering because of the trauma. But Elaine asked the girl not to become another reason for their pain, because as long as Juliana is alive, she can help these people find happiness again. Hearing everything and realizing what they'd all been through, the girl could barely breathe through her tears. But she apologized to the family. She's got no strength left. It's awful that she couldn't protect Cesar. She hated herself so much. She was so hurt. She blamed her father and Cesar. Juliana decided to live, to get back on her feet, even though she's still scared and hurting like hell. But now she was sure that with her father and Caesar's help, she could heal. After Elaine left, Suzanne suddenly rushed after her, calling out. He'd been wanting to ask her something since yesterday, so he figured he'd ask now. Did she think she could die for someone she loved? The moment she thought about someone she loved, Ray popped into her head, and she'd definitely be ready to die for him. Just having the chance to protect that person, in her opinion, was already a blessing. Hearing that, Suzanne remembered his brother. Before dying, Caesar said that the two of them had protected Juliana to the death, and now he didn't want his younger brother to suffer because of him. Looking at Lady Elaine, Suzanne couldn't help but notice how alike they were, and decided to reveal why he'd been friendly at their first meeting. When the guy looked at her, he had this feeling like she was his dead brother, an honest and brave person who'd do anything to protect their loved ones. That's Elaine all over. And Caesar too, who his younger brother respected so much. He'll never forget it, and neither will his sister or father. Then, out of nowhere, Milady says she needs to see a certain list and asks for permission to take a look. Meanwhile, the Crown Prince was absolutely livid. He was so pissed he dropped his glass and cut his hand to shreds. The old man's told him more than once he should be more like Rehei. In his eyes, Licht's just useless. Going on about how he can't do anything because of Rehei, the Crown Prince was sure his dad would be disappointed in him again. So he ordered his men to keep a close eye on Richt's movements and report everything back to him. Licht was hoping Duke Feline would screw up. Fancy clothes, loyal people, good food. You gotta be careful with all that. Back in Killyard, Suzanne was getting thanked by the captain for all his hard work, even though he was the one who should be thanking him. Rehei didn't expect them to make such a sweet deal. It covered all the costs, and even gave them priority. On top of that, Suzanne handed over a gift for the Duchess's escort. It's the 20-year-old roster of the team that took down the evil dragon, a secret document only she can see. After he left, Rehei wanted to know what the documents were, but Elaine insisted they were personal. Remembering the wound, she said she'd taken care of it as soon as she got back, and it was already healing. Noticing the Duke's unhappy face, the girl apologized for being rude and possibly hurting him back then. But Rehei didn't need an apology. He wouldn't like being touched either, especially since he wasn't feeling well. Anyway, it's late, so the captain told the attendant to go get some rest until tomorrow. Her expression is something else to him. Elaine's become someone close, but there's this weird distance between them. And honestly, the Duke really wanted to break it, but it was still too soon. When our girl finally got back to her room, she decided to check who was on it right away. April 18th, 511 in the Feline calendar. The team roster for conquering the evil dragon. The list included people like Lloyd DeFillion, Taylor Wood, Kevin Breyer. Elaine figures if he boosted the evil dragon's body, he'd probably be sitting pretty as some big shot official. Out of nowhere, she bumps into a team coming back late. Turns out, it's the squad collecting the evil dragon's carcass. Perfect. These are exactly the guys. It'd be easier to get close and swipe some pieces. Commander Callius Dennick, Commander Crystal Gwell, and Talos Asgard, commander of the 7th Magic Division. Lady Elaine's study sesh gets interrupted by a surprise visit from Lovell, looking to snag some of her time. Sounds like His Majesty's on his way over. Got something important to talk about. Finally, he managed to connect and find Sir Walter's trail in Malthan Village, up north. Long story short, the Duke agreed to meet him at the Horned Inn, so he headed straight there after getting to the village. Hearing the whispers, he realized that he and Elaine were outsiders here, drawing a lot of attention. If things keep going this way, it's totally up in the air whether they'll even cooperate with the investigation later. Before the Seneca incident, the main character ran into Walter a lot because of Lloyd. Even though it's been 20 years, he probably still remembers Elaine's face. If he sees her like this, it'll all click. With that in mind, it'd be better for her to avoid him. But that's just not gonna happen. Rehei was 3 years old, and Milady was grateful she got to grow up with him. Even if she has to ditch him, Rehei's definitely gonna try and find her, obviously. Soon Duke Feline and his escort arrived at the pub for the meeting. Rehei started by saying he'd received a letter, saying an item related to their case had been found. Then the kid who found the item pointed out a woman to the captain. She was wearing something unusual around her neck. The pendant she's wearing belongs to Walter. It's been a long time, but it's still the Rister family crest. The knight managed to learn from the woman that she was wearing it because she found it near Ghost Mountain. According to him, this place is cursed, and only the villagers know about it. They say anyone who goes there either dies or goes insane, so the locals stay away. After hearing that, the Duke found it weird that the woman found the pendant on such a dangerous mountain. Since she doesn't remember much about the place, the captain decided to ask a few more questions himself. Before leaving, He thanked the young man for his good work. It was time for him to head back to Killiard. Rehist's question about where the landlady got the pendant put her in a really awkward spot. Without waiting for an answer, he offered to buy it from her, offering any amount of money. The landlady was intrigued by the offer when she saw the gold coins, and that's when her assistant approached. The huge pile of gold practically blinded them. They couldn't believe the master was willing to pay so much. Turns out, people like that don't care about the cost, so the landlady agreed to sell the pendant without hesitation. No sooner did the Duke reach for it than this little thief snatched it right out of his hands. The landlady's helper grabbed the kid immediately, even though he swore it was his pendant and not for sale. Desperate, the kid yelled that he'd found it 10 years ago near Ghost Mountain, and the woman stole it. Turns out, he even saw the pendant's owner back then. And even though he was little, he remembers everything. Hearing this, Rehei snatched the money bag from the woman and held it out to the boy, willing to pay for this info. Blonde hair and blue eyes. According to the kid, the guy was tall, with 2 scars on the back of his right hand. That's it exactly. It's been 10 years since Walter disappeared, and they finally picked up his trail. After that, the Duke took the boy to eat at the Pine Inn, where he managed to learn that his name was Jody. Since he looks like a kid, Rehei figured his parents must own the inn. Actually, Jody's an orphan, and the innkeepers adopted and raised him. Yeah, it doesn't sound great. They didn't feed him right, made him work like a dog every day, and beat him when he messed up. The kid's turning 15 this year, but he looks younger than everyone else and gets crap from his foster parents. That's how Jody wrapped up his story, and now he wanted to know what brought these people here. The Duke looks so young, but he's willing to drop that kind of cash, so it must be important to him. After saying they were there to meet the owner of the pendant, Rehei asked how the kid met him. It's a long story. Jody remembers him because of Karen, a guy who used to live in the haunted forest a long time ago. Now he's gone. The kid's suspicious of the pendant's owner. As soon as that guy showed up in the village, Karan had an accident. It all started a long time ago with a weird guy living on the haunted mountain. His name was Karen. He had dark, seaweed-like hair, and people avoided him because he looked so scruffy and gloomy. The village kids were both scared and curious about him, so they used Jody to find out more. They wanted Karen's hair, so they told Jody to get it for them, promising to call him brave and leave him alone after that. Besides, he wouldn't be able to escape them if he didn't find Karen. Those were the conditions they laid out. The kid didn't want to do it, but he had no choice but to sneak into Karen's house. It was super creepy inside, but all he needed to do was pick up a few stray hairs. Just when he was carefully searching for hair, he heard a terrifying voice behind him. Karen had unexpectedly returned. Startled, the kid crashed into a cabinet and barely saw a vase flying towards his head. Turns out, the grim guy from Ghost Mountain didn't want to hurt him. He grabbed the vase at the last second and saved the kid. That's when Jody explained that his friends promised to leave him alone if he got Karen's hair. He couldn't believe his eyes when he saw how easily and kindly Karen cut off a lock of hair and gave it to him. Karen told him to be smarter about his friends, because Karen wasn't really that weird. After that, the other kids stopped bullying the boy, and he started visiting Karan. Karen was kind, but also kinda weird. He never even looked out the window to see who was coming. One time he was mumbling something in his sleep. Another time, Jody found this cool crystal ball in his room, but the guy hid it. The kid didn't really care, so he forgot about it. Hanging out with Karan was more important to him. Then one day, on his way to Karan's, Jody bumped into this strange dude who definitely wasn't from around here. This guy in a black hoodie said he was just passing through, had some business to take care of. When he found out the kid was headed into the woods, this scarred-up dude told him he shouldn't go there today. Said something weird might happen. Jody remembered him because he was acting so damn strange. For some reason, those words freaked the kid out, so he didn't go into the woods that day. But that night, Karen's cabin went up in flames, a real inferno. As soon as Jody saw the fire in Ghostwood Forest, he ran to his new friend's house, but he was too late. His house burned until the downpour started. All the kid could do was wait till morning to see if the fire was out. Wandering through the burnt-out ruins of the cabin, Jody was totally lost, searching for Karen, but he was nowhere to be found. And then he suddenly stumbled on a sooty glove, with that same pendant inside. After that incident, ghosts started showing up on Ghostwood Mountain, and anyone who went near Karen's house was found frozen in terror. They say it's Karen's curse, but the kid didn't think Karen could do something like that. The fact that there were only traces of Karen and Walter at the burned-down cabin, but no bodies, blew Rehist's mind. The way Jody saw it, it was obvious Walter was somehow connected to Karen. Looks like Walter went into Ghostwood Forest and met a guy named Karen there, and it's like they vanished together. Thinking about all this, Elaine decided to ask if the kid remembered anything else about Karen. Okay, this might sound weird, but even though Jody hung out with him all the time, he barely knew anything about the guy. But then one day, a few days before Walter showed up, Karen opened up. He was super anxious, staring out the window day and night. The kid tried to sneak up behind him to scare him, and that's when he heard him mumbling. The guy was saying he didn't want to live as Karan anymore, that his real name was Talos Asgar. Elaine's heard that name before. Talos Asgar, commander of the 7th Magic Division, the team that took down the evil dragon. The Duke decided he needed to learn more about this guy, but it's late, so he suggested they start tomorrow morning. But there's a problem. Jody's been kicked out of the tavern for good, so now he's got nowhere to live. As long as Duke Fillion's in this village, he'll protect him and take responsibility for him. For the first time, the kid felt safe and thought these two would actually make awesome parents. Before leaving, Rehei told him again to keep the money he gave him hidden, because adults might kill him if they saw that much cash. He could trade him for silver or gold, since these tavern owners ain't got that kind of cash. This time, nobody's ripping off Jody. The next morning, panic ripped through the village. People were freaked out by what happened. They found a kid yesterday up on Ghost Mountain. Fear and terror basically scared him to death. Anyway, while everyone's distracted, it was time for Duke Fillion and his escort to get moving. The higher they climbed, the worse the blizzard got. Reaching the summit and seeing that wrecked, burnt-down shack, the heroes knew this was the place. This place is trashed. Maybe because it's been so long, the wood's all rotten. The Duke figured there was nothing to connect them to Walter, until he saw those glowing eyes in the dark. The second he told Elaine to close her eyes, she immediately told him to get over here, now. But a split second later, the captain was gone, like he vanished into thin air. Suddenly, the heroine heard his voice and turned to see Rehei behind her, totally wrecked and covered in blood. He collapsed to the ground, completely spent, but his attendant freaked out and rushed to him, trying to revive him. Tears streaming down his face, writhing in pain, the Duke grabbed her by the throat and demanded to know why she killed his mother. Because of that, his life became a living hell. Before that, seeing the red eyes, Rehei was suddenly thrown back into the middle of the Seneca horror. Seeing the dying people, looking like ghosts, he couldn't believe it was real. It was all Spectre's fault, that monster that sucks people dry using their trauma. Only then did the Duke realize that the Seneca incident was his trauma. Just then, he heard a familiar voice, Walter saying that he needed to get the hell out of there. It was too dangerous. Panicked, the Lord offered Rehei his hand. They could only survive by escaping from there. Feeling the devil's chains on him, the ruthless Duke Fillion swung his sword and chopped its head off. No way you can fool him like that. He'd seen that nightmare 100,000 times. Waking up, the captain realized the hallucination was gone and immediately checked to see if Elaine was okay. Panicked, he searched everywhere for her and suddenly spotted her lifeless body in the cold snow. She was freezing but couldn't wake up and tearfully apologized for messing up. Realizing the lady would freeze to death if she didn't wake up, Rehei scooped her up and said they needed to deal with these hallucinations. At that moment, Lady Elaine tightly grabbed his hand. All she wanted was for Rehei not to leave. When he heard the name Rehei, a strange feeling washed over him. But there's no time for those thoughts now. He needed to deal with Spectre. He was driven only by the desire to save Lady Elaine, praying she'd hold on a little longer. Tripping balls, the heroine saw Bella standing right there, ready to give her heart. Even though it would save her life, she begged the witch not to do it. But Bella didn't see what the big deal was. Elaine was already living on her heart anyway. The lady's chest burned like her whole body was on fire. That's what it was like to have someone else's heart beating inside. Bella thought it was a lie that Lady Elaine didn't want her stepmother to die, that she didn't want any of this. And as Espel was convinced, she was relieved that she survived thanks to Bella's heart. Every cell in Elaine's body, down to her heart, all of it belonged to Bella. She stole Lloyd's wife's heart. The witch who killed all those poor people gave her heart to the one everyone blamed for it. In desperation, the girl tried to explain herself until she met herself, who blamed her for all the misery around them. If the heroine hadn't gone to the blacksmith that day, if her stepmother hadn't been such a bitch, things would be different. If she hadn't been born, if she hadn't met Bella, there wouldn't be this pain. The voices in Elaine's head were telling her she screwed everything up. She said she'd protect everyone, but she broke her promise. So she figured maybe she should just disappear forever. There was no one left to protect anyway. Suddenly, she heard a voice, but didn't know who was calling her. That familiar smile, that strong hand, pulling her back. Not everyone's gone. There's still one person left. Lady Elaine has to protect Bella's son. Waking up in his arms, she saw Rehei. He almost lost it, saving her from death. Holding her close, he couldn't deny it anymore. He was into Elaine so bad, he was terrified of a world without her. The second she mentioned Spectre, the captain pushed her away, not realizing she was already awake. He told her he took care of everything while she was out, and that the hallucinations were gone for good. But then she noticed Rehei wasn't wearing his coat, just a shirt. Turns out Elaine's body temperature just plummeted when she heard that, and she started pulling all his clothes back on him. No secret Rehei was worried. It's for her safety, even if she's strong. Doesn't mean she can handle everything. Besides, if she's having a tough time, she can always turn to the Duke, and he'll help her out. Actually, she hasn't said anything about her past. If she had, he would have acted like he normally does. Suddenly, they spotted something in the ruins and frantically started digging around for it. From under the wooden planks, the Duke pulled out a crystal ball, packed with mana. This might be the very ball Jody was talking about. But first, Rehei suggested putting it back. Meanwhile, something's going down back in the village. They've been hearing screams since morning. They're saying if this keeps up, a real monster might show up. Seeing the guys back from the ghost forest, a villager rushed up to them to find out what happened. Elaine was still processing everything that just happened, so she promised to explain later. Suddenly, they heard a scream, and Jody was freaking out, worried his aunt and uncle were hurt. He suspected something was up because the guy's face was all red, and the girl was drenched in sweat. The Duke's not just got a fever, his body's burning up. That's why he's sweating like crazy. He managed to say he'd be fine after a rest. Then he just collapsed, totally spent. Feeling obligated to help the captain ASAP, Elaine told Jody to head back to the lodge. Soon after she got the Duke tucked into bed, she came to check his temperature. Even though he insisted it was just a fever, a burning fever that wipes you out is still dangerous. Still, his body temperature had gone down some in that time. This is a small town, so there aren't any doctors. But Elaine got out some tea that helps bring down a fever. Their fingers brushed, and a heat flared up inside them, making things super awkward. She panicked and bolted out of the room to grab some food, anything to break the tension. It was so out of the blue. Everything had been normal, so why was she freaking out now? Heading down the hall, she bumped into Jody and decided to find out what he was doing there. Turns out, the kid already knew that she and Register had gone to see Karen. And get this, he also knew that Elaine had Karen's magic crystal ball in her room. Jody asked his sis to give him the ball, saying he knew it was tough, but he missed Karen like crazy. The cabin's been wiped clean, and that magic ball's the only link they have left to him. He had no clue if Karen was even alive, but having the ball would make him feel better, you know? Elaine needed the ball to study it, so she couldn't hand it over just yet. It was the only way to track down Caron and Sir Walter. Once they're done with the analysis, Milady will hand over the orb, but she asked the kid to wait a little. Awesome news that they might find his old buddy. Jody was definitely down to wait. Elaine promised to tell him the second they find Karen, but turns out they weren't the only ones interested in the crystal ball. That evening, when our girl brought the Duke his food, she found him asleep in this jacked-up position on the chair. She told him to get in bed, but Rehei was out cold. Didn't even stir when she spoke. Judging by the look on his face, he's uncomfortable. Damn, Rehei really grew up. There's nothing left of that kid. His hands are bigger and wider than Elaine thought. She just fantasized about touching him, even for a second. Feeling the soft warmth of her skin, the kind that gives you goosebumps, the stunned Duke Feline finally woke up. He was holding her hand so tight, Milady couldn't stop herself, slowly leaning in towards his lips. But then she snapped out of it and freaked out, jumping back, her face burning with embarrassment. Elaine, totally freaked out, just bolted without saying a word. She didn't even know what happened. Rehei's eyes, him holding her wrist, feeling his breath. Up until now, she'd only thought of him as a cute little brother. But after getting that close, she realized she actually likes Rehei. 2 days later, the captain was doing better, so they were getting ready to head back to Killyard. But before they could leave the village, Jody threw a fit, saying he had a super important request. Turns out, he wanted to come too, begging them to take him to Killyard. The kid was ready to do anything to get them to take him, hinting he was an orphan and might get robbed. Judging by how desperate he was just dreaming of getting out of there. So Duke Feline made a snap decision to bring the kid along. Since the trip back's gonna be pretty rough on the kid, he told Jody to stick close. After a while, once they were out in the Killian wilds, the boy was totally blown away by the sights. Out of nowhere, Lady Elaine decided to leave him alone for a bit, hoping he wouldn't get lost. Even though the kid's 15 already, Rehei had to double-check with her ladyship that they were really letting him go solo. It all felt like they were one big happy family. But ever since that day, Elaine hasn't met the Duke's eyes. She figured it was better to keep her distance, because if he ever found out, it'd be a huge mess. Sir and Lady showing up cheered Lavelle right up. He saw them and joyfully rushed to greet them with honors. But spotting the kid next to them, the guy got a little thrown and needed to know who he was. According to the Duke, the boy's helping them with the investigation. His name's Jody, and Rehei decided to help him out in return. He ordered them to get the kid some fresh clothes, feed him, see what they could offer him, and take him to his room. Once the kid was gone, the first thing Lord Lovell wanted to know was if the Duke had found any trace of Walter. First off, Rehei told him to call for Lord Haleo and handed over Walter's pendant they'd found. Looks like this is going to be a long talk. The Duke wanted to discuss the rest in his study. After that, Rehei filled Lord Lovell in on the story of the Multinu Hilla village. Lady Hilla couldn't believe she was seeing her dad's pendant, but sadly, Walter's exact location remained unknown. According to the Duke, the pendant's still their only lead, but he just needed a little more time. Walter's daughter was grateful they'd found her dad's pendant and understood that finding him would take time, so she was ready to offer any help and assistance if His Highness happened to need it. Then, Lavelle almost forgot to mention that while the Duke and his escort were away, Countess Mueller had contacted him. Their meeting finally happened soon after. Diana Mueller was happy to welcome the Duke to Killyard. After getting Lady Diana settled, Elaine mentioned she'd heard the mining business brought her here. Figuring the Earl of Mueller's oldest daughter was back on the magic stone grind, Rehei decided to check out their purity. According to Diana's research, 90% of what they're pulling out is top tier. Hearing that, Mr. Feline jumped in and offered a deal on the magic stones. It seemed like a normal business chat, but Lady Diana had this slightly awkward look, like she wanted to talk about something else. Once all the papers were signed, Rehei thanked her for the cooperation, and the meeting was done. But out of nowhere, Lady Mueller asked if the Duke had received her letter. The air got thick with tension. Lavelle realized the report just hadn't been delivered to him. Rehei wiped out all the monsters in the mine last time, and now Diana wanted to meet him face to face. Just then, Elaine chimed in, saying the Duke rarely answers letters, so the lady came to talk to him in person. After telling him about His Majesty's birthday banquet, Lady Mueller decided to ask the captain for a favor. Hearing she had no one to go with and needed a partner, Rehei was grateful, but he had to refuse. It wasn't that he'd found someone else. It's just that there's a ton of gossip about him. The reason he doesn't go to banquets with anyone is because he doesn't want to hurt his partner. Stating that Count Mueller respected everyone, Diana couldn't give a damn about the rumors. Still, the unwavering Duke repeated himself one last time, thanking and apologizing to her. Understanding his feelings, Lady Diana didn't humiliate herself and left Killyard Palace. Clutching his head after everything that happened, Lovell couldn't figure out what just went down. No matter how badly she needed a partner, he remembered how the nobles mocked the Duke every year. Plus, Prince Michael recently announced he'd found a bride, so it would definitely insult Rehei. His Majesty's all grown up now, but he's never even thought about finding a wife. Lord Lovell never told him, but the Duke's been getting tons of letters about it, like hundreds. Seemed like a waste of time. This guy's not even Rehei's dad. But he's all up in his personal life. A good marriage opens up new doors, so Lovell figured Michael should get hitched sooner rather than later. The whole time they were talking about it, Lady Elaine looked totally pale. The thought of Rehei's wedding was stressing her out. As soon as the Duke's aide noticed her, she awkwardly said she was just a little lost in thought. Everyone used to get married, and thinking Rehei would too. She couldn't even wrap her head around it right now. The next day, His Majesty went to Schubert in Killiode to get him to make a custom suit. Word on the street was he was the best tailor in Killiode. He could practically guarantee the Duke would shine at the banquet. After giving the Duke a look at the design options, Schubert was ready to get to work on it. Okay, so tons of nobles are going to be at this banquet, which means Rehei's going to be drowning in ladies, obviously. Elaine, trying to block out the thought of him dancing with someone else, freaked and clapped her hands over her ears. She felt like she was losing her mind. Like any time the wedding comes up, she just snaps. First up, Schubert showed off a summer outfit that's popular with the nobles, made from this super rare green fabric. Seeing the dark green outfit, Elaine knew right away that dark green just clashes with Rehei's violet eyes. Next outfit's inspired by travel. It's got a decent color, but it's way too plain for a banquet. Seeing his escort's sour face, the Duke knew this one was a no-go too. Neither the super traditional designs, nor the ones ripped off from the East were gonna fly with her. She didn't even notice the classics until she saw the next suit, the one you can't even buy anywhere yet. It's made of top-tier black fabric with gold embroidery. And these white and violet details really make it pop. This suit shows off your build perfectly, and like the tailor said, you won't find another one like it anywhere. Rocking this suit, the Duke's gonna steal the show at the banquet, so he bought it without a second thought. Then, Schubert offered to get something custom-made for his partner, but the Duke brushed him off, said he didn't need anything. But right then, he asked if they had any dresses, and the tailor slapped down a catalog of women's styles. Wanting his bodyguard to have something proper to wear, Duke Feline told Elaine to pick something out. He told her to think of it as a thank you gift for taking care of things back in Moltenue village. And even if she's not alone at the banquet, it's cool, since she'll be escorting the Duke. Before long, they finally hit the road, looking sharp. Everything came together even better this year. While they were traveling, Sophia got curious and asked Elaine to be straight with her. Where'd she get that outfit? Lady Rossley didn't get why she was embarrassed. I mean, the outfit really is gorgeous. Knowing her lady's maid wouldn't pick something like that herself, she figured the Duke must have chosen the outfit. Jackson, the butler, greeted them warmly at the mansion, bowing and inviting them inside. As he reached to grab the clothes and take them to the wardrobe, Rehei told him to wait in the living room. They arrived earlier than Suzanne expected, which meant they had some time to kill. According to Lady Rossley, this is His Majesty's city mansion, and he celebrates his birthday here every year. All this weighed heavily on Suzanne, especially thinking about how close Chelsea seemed to be with His Majesty. That got Elaine's attention. She didn't know that. So, the young man decided to tell her the story. After what happened at Seneca, a lot of royal family members bit the dust. When both the king and the crown prince positions opened up, Chelsea de Feline immediately stepped in. Chelsea gave Prince Michael the crown prince title, so he got demoted to the Duke of Killyard. That's why there's this Chelsea conspiracy theory going around, that he waited for the witch to escape so he could grab the throne. Sezon heard from Lavelle that the mercenaries were after His Majesty, 'cause Killyard's been booming under him. Chelsea never imagined the desolate Killyard would actually thrive under the young Duke's leadership. Sophia figured if they ignored the growth in Killyard, not knowing how much he'd pay to hire mercs, the public would riot. It's pretty obvious the mercenaries were hired by someone from the old aristocracy. Those nobles are the type who value family status over life itself. They took major losses in the Seneca incident, and they're holding a grudge. Elaine couldn't even imagine they'd be this furious over Rhea's success in Killyard. Only 2 people survived the incident, Chelsea de Feline and Duke Diallo. Even though they're brothers, he was stripped of his rights to the throne and given the title of Duke, but he still earned respect among the old nobles. From what we know, Diallo suffered huge losses in the Seneca incident, which could be his motive for killing Rehei. So, when you think about it, Chelsea de Feline was the only one who actually benefited from that whole mess. If this conspiracy theory's legit, Chelsea was the one who put together the squad to take down that demon dragon, which means he's behind the Seneca incident. The banquet prep was almost done, and according to Michael, only nobles were supposed to show up. His dad really wanted to believe he wouldn't screw things up again this time. Michael swore his dad could trust him this time, saying he only failed last time because of some unexpected snags. Besides, word is this monster's got no partner. Fencing, talent, business. He turned it all down. Chelsea de Feline couldn't believe this guy even rejected a partner. This time, he told his son not to wait. Michael promised not to let him down again. The second prince was pumped, determined. He was positive he'd finally get Rehist's approval this time. All right, with all the preparations done, Duke Feline ordered the carriage to be prepped for departure. His escort was already getting impatient, but he finally showed up, looking absolutely stunning in his new getup. Just one look at him, and Elaine was breathless. She forgot how to breathe and couldn't tear her eyes away. Only when he got too close, the girl said, flustered. How good the suit looked on him. Soon, Duke Feline walked into the banquet hall, catching everyone's eye. Excited chatter turned into whispers. To others, Rehist is the son of a witch, but all he was thinking about was how the king and queen's seats hadn't changed in a year. Seeing him here, Michael remembered saying he'd find him. Looks like Rehist's doing well, so the prince was happy, meeting him here for the first time since last year's banquet. Getting no greeting in return, he introduced his fiancée, Princess Elizabeth Fernar. Bowing before the Duke, Milady declared it was a great honor to meet him. Spotting Rehist standing alone, Michael figured the dude still hadn't managed to land anyone this past year. But hey, no biggie. The prince told him to keep his chin up and clink glasses. Then, out of nowhere, that snake Elizabeth splashed wine right in the Duke's face. Just when he least expected it, Rehist saw a ladies' fan pop up in front of his face, blocking the spray. Turning to Lady Feline, she said the lady needed to watch her step when wearing a long dress like that. But no harm done, 'cause Lady Lakers was quick enough to shield the Duke with her fancy fan. Taking a bow before the guests, she introduced herself as Juliana Lakers and said she was pleased to meet Crown Prince Feline. She'd heard His Majesty arrived recently and wanted to discuss a possible engagement, but looks like he found someone else already. With a sly grin, Michael called BS, figuring the lady still had some screws loose after a year stuck in bed. Juliana's been back on her feet for a while now. She just took a break from the social scene, that's all. That day, Duke Killiard came to see her, and the lady was super grateful he helped find that monster. Turns out, during Michael's investigation, this damned woman was mentally screwed up after her lover died. He was dead certain Juliana had a chronic illness from losing her love, especially since she started having mental issues. In that instant, Miss Lakers got branded. Daughter of the noble Lakers family falls for an orphaned knight. Deciding to step in, Duke Feline shot that down, saying Lady Lakers never had a knight as a lover. He's been doing business with them for ages and knows everything, so he introduced his partner, telling everyone not to insult her. Michael couldn't believe what he was seeing, and froze solid when he heard his father's booming voice behind him. After all that went down, Juliana was pissed that the rumors were going to spread like wildfire among the nobles. Feeling a little guilty, Rehei apologized, saying he just wanted to help and ended up screwing things up. "It's really okay. My lady just wanted to know if you were doing all right." She never imagined the Duke would think she's better off staying away from a witch's son, not expecting to be in this kind of mess. Just like Lady Lakers thought. Turns out the captain's got guts. It didn't even cross her mind that Michael was secretly watching her, and that made her think about Cesar. Juliana still misses him, but she's getting tougher. She can't just sit around anymore. Cesar's still in her head. Even so, she suggested going back to the banquet, but the Duke was planning on heading back to the mansion. In that case, after thanking her colleague for the day, Miss Lakers told him he could reach out if he needed anything. This colleague's totally crushing on his bodyguard. That's how it looks. That evening, Elaine silently sank into her thoughts, waiting for Rehei to finally come out. But then, out of the corner of her eye, she noticed Chelsea was there. She hadn't seen him in person even 20 years ago. But if he saw her face in the documents, or in a portrait, or even just caught a glimpse of her from afar, it's best to avoid it. Watching Chelsea and his crew walk away, she knew it wasn't time to grill them yet. No doubt the nobles at the banquet think Bella's the one to blame for what went down at Seneca. Elaine couldn't even imagine what it would be like, what it would feel like to have Rehei there. All these thoughts are driving her nuts, so she decided to get some air and step out onto the porch. Opening the door, she bumped right into His Majesty and was speechless for a second. He was staring at her, even though the banquet's still going on. Rehei decided to take a stroll, and saw that Milady came out for a walk too. A sound suddenly came from the banquet hall, and Elaine instantly focused on the amazing melody. As the Duke pointed out, that's Shudel. She heard her before in dance class, but now she's just dancing horribly. That surprised Rehei, 'cause he never even figured his attendant was from an aristocratic family. She had to tell him that her family went bankrupt, and she had to sell her title. Plus her family's from the sticks. Killian worked it out, and since everything was cool, he asked her to dance until the end of the Shudel tune. When she heard that, the lady freaked. She hadn't danced in ages, and besides, the Duke needed to get back to the banquet. But Rehei didn't want to go back there. There was a minor scandal during the music. As far as he was concerned, Elaine didn't have to worry about him or his status anymore, claiming she didn't like that stuff anyway. Accepting his dance invite, she worried about stepping on his foot, but the captain just told her to follow his lead. Lost in the dance, the heroine didn't even know what was happening, or if it was okay for her to be dancing with Rehei. She didn't know if she was allowed to dance with him, or what she should do. But she couldn't think straight, her heart was pounding so hard. Gazing up at the magnificent Duke, the heroine tried to figure out what kind of expression he was wearing. In that perfect moment, Rehei felt incredible. He had never felt this good in the entire palace. He's in a different mood now. Ever since Elaine became his bodyguard, the captain's been a happy man. It got to the point where he couldn't even remember what life was like before she came along. Maybe the master's rushing things, but seeing her face lately, a little hope sparked in him. All this time, Rehei wanted to tell Elaine that he loved her with all his freaking heart. Looking into his eyes, which were practically screaming about his true love, the heroine just couldn't believe it. She didn't know why, or when it started, but she just couldn't believe Rehei could actually love her back. The girl dreamed of returning his feelings and spilling her own, until she remembered her promise to the witch. Without even realizing it, Elaine pushed the love-struck Duke away, rejecting his feelings, saying she couldn't accept them. With the witch's heart, she felt she had no right to his love. She'd suffered for 20 years because she couldn't stop Bella. If Rehei found out she loved him with Bella's heart, the heroine couldn't even imagine how much he'd despise her. The horror in her eyes as she yanked her hand away and backed off made the Duke think she straight up hated him. Elaine insisted he was misunderstanding her, saying she shouldn't like him. Rehei didn't get what she was on about. It wasn't that she hated him, but he wasn't supposed to love her either. Seriously, he has no clue what's going on in that girl's head. Bottom line, the lady asked him to pretend none of this ever happened, then bowed and took off. Soon after, Chelsea de Feline got some seriously bad news. Duke Diallo was dead. Word is, a chronic illness flared up, and he kicked the bucket at dawn today. As for Duke Killiard, he left this morning, so he's probably made it back to Killiard by now. Also, they're digging into that crystal ball thing. They've got surveillance set up, so we'll know soon. Chelsea was pumped that the witch's kid was trying to pull something off even without backup, eager to get the scoop before anyone else. After that day, Rehei never brought up the confession again. For days, he acted like his normal self. You can't help but feel the distance that's grown between them, though. Out of the blue, the Duke called his assistant, but to send her on ahead today, saying he'd wrap things up. Elaine tried to talk him out of it, but she had to agree and hand over the remaining documents. But the second their hands brushed, fate intervened, scattering papers everywhere. Classic romantic moment, right? They both bent down to pick up the mess. Knowing it'd be awkward, Rhys said he totally understood the answer Elaine gave him that day. All the captain wanted was for her to be comfortable, not to quit, because things were tough with him. There's no way he's letting her stop being his bodyguard, bottom line. If she says she'll stay with him, the Duke doesn't care if it's as a lover or a sweetheart. With the documents gathered, she bowed her head, planning to head out first then. But just as she was leaving, Lovell burst in, raising hell. He took a breath and shouted that there'd been a murder right next to the Knight's Order building. The scene was messed up bad, the victim was brutalized. They didn't even have eyes anymore. According to Lovell, there's been 7 murders since they started preparing for the birthday celebration up until today. Now, the killer's expanded his hunting grounds. Looks like this guy bit the dust around midnight. Rehei pointed out the killer's M.O. He strikes at night and takes body parts from the victims. If he remembers right, the victim worked as a cleaner for the Knight's Order, and he had pink eyes. Plus, Lovell knew that the other victims also had hair and eyes that were, like, unusually colored. This killer's abilities in the way he thinks are way beyond normal people. The victim clearly fought back and took a bunch of hits, but the eye sockets were cut out real clean. So, like the Duke was saying, an investigation based solely on logic might get us nowhere. Turning to Lady Elaine, he asked her to hang back a bit and help him with the investigation. But the heroine never even considered the Duke wanting to be bait, just because he's got violet eyes. He's planning to ditch the fancy clothes and hit the alley. When the killer gets careless, he'll grab him. Just like Elaine, Lovell thought it was dangerous until they had a suspect, and it could be a mage or something not even human. Wizard or whatever else he is, that lowlife won't be able to handle the Duke, no way. Feeling a total sense of desperation welling up inside, Elaine suddenly asked to be the bait instead. She's got green eyes and silver hair, which means her value as bait is way higher. But Rehist couldn't let his guard do something so reckless, period. With that, they both started trying to prove how determined they were. But luckily, Lavelle quickly shut them down. He didn't think any of them would crack, so he suggested switching up the strategy, using 2 decoys. Before the mission kicked off, the Duke briefed everyone one last time to make sure they were clear. The plan was, he and Lady Elaine would split up and go their separate ways, alone. The rest of the team would wait in the alley, ready to jump and move out the second they saw the signal flare. The operation to catch the killer was underway. Everything was going according to plan. But Lady Elaine was praying the killer would come for her. With her sword hidden under her skirt, she was ready to take the killer down the second he showed. She wasn't about to let them get away with such a blatant violation of the law in the Killiard Empire. Just as expected, the killer was drawn in by the silver hair and green eyes. Their young owner was the perfect addition to his collection. Elaine walked into a pretty dark spot, but since nothing was happening, she figured the killer went after Rehei. The attacker crept up behind her, ready to strike, but she sensed him and reacted instantly with her sword. He didn't see that coming. She swung again, forcing the killer to back off. This guy's got blood-red eyes, sharp claws, and a magical power way beyond human. No doubt about it, he's a demon. He's gotta be the Killiard serial killer. As soon as Elaine accused him, the killer figured she knew and came looking for him. Now that he's closer, her eyes are even brighter and more beautiful than he thought. Perfect for his collection. Unlike demons, humans have different colored eyes and hair. All demons have silver hair and red eyes, so boring. Which explains why this demon collects human body parts, focusing on rare colors whenever possible. Elaine realized that this might be the exact reason he's been killing people all this time. The thought that this bastard was killing people just for a hobby made her blood boil. But taking her down ain't gonna be as easy for this killer as he thought. Her strength and agility clued him in that she wasn't just some regular person. She was practically a master. Not that a demon like him couldn't handle someone that strong. Plus, he was kinda intrigued by that guy with the purple eyes. Once Elaine figured out the killer was gonna off her first, then go after the young master, she told him to bring it on. The Duke's bodyguard was totally confident that this scumbag wouldn't be able to kill either one of them. The demon was blown away by how cocky she was for a human, so he decided to unleash 1,000 years of rage. That's just how demons are. Brutal creatures with zero morals, valuing human lives as much as insects. Elaine completely forgot about that when she was with Esme. Unlike other demons, he was a warm and kind person. Seeing blood on his hand, the killer couldn't believe a human managed to break his demonic nails. It's clear this girl's magical power is way beyond human limits. Messing with her is a recipe for serious pain. The demon had no choice but to toy with his victim to avoid a straight-up fight. Spotting him making a run for it, the girl took off after him, but she was too late. The fog rolled in. Suddenly, Elaine heard his voice. The demon was out of time, so he decided to show himself. He told her they should never meet again. Then his voice just faded into the night fog. He was planning to stick around Killiard a bit longer, then move on. He didn't know this variable existed. After coming here through the passage and somehow picking up this hobby, he couldn't just die like that. Running far from the scene of the attack, the killer thought he'd gotten away clean until a stranger blocked his path. This mysterious dude, holding out a jar of human eyeballs, implied that he was the owner of this collection. Not knowing where this bastard got his collection, the demon flew into a rage, demanding he hand over the jar now. Looks like the master left this place unattended for too long, if lowlifes like that killer are getting into Killiard. Hands clenched, the wanderer finished off the serial killer and tossed his body aside like trash. Just a justice fighter, a demon with a good heart, here to protect her son. After everything that went down in the alley, the assistants rushed out to Lady Elaine to make sure she was okay. She's fine, but the perp got away with teleportation. He's not human, he's a demon. Figuring he couldn't have gotten far, Elaine realized this was urgent and ordered them to report it to His Grace immediately. Hearing that Milady was going to hunt down the criminal, the assistants insisted they were ordered to go with her. Despite their attempts to stop her, the heroine left, following her instincts, which sensed the demon's presence. In that magical moment, everything suddenly stopped making sense. She saw a man she thought was dead all this time. Clutching Esmael, tears streaming down her face, she couldn't believe it was really him, that he actually survived. Looking at her up close, the demon realized it really was that girl. That Elaine. It felt like a dream. That day, the heroine thought she was wrong, but Esme was so happy to see her again. He felt the same way. Ever since that day, no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't find the girl. The demon didn't understand why she hadn't changed at all. But either way, that's something you can't hide from Esme. Elaine, who was neither demon nor witch, hadn't changed at all, even though 20 years had passed. To Esme, Bella must have been more precious than her, and that caused unbearable pain. Last time, he said he never wanted to see Bella suffer because of humans again. That's why he hated Elaine. The girl actually felt really bad. But back then, she said she wanted to stay with Bella. Knowing she'd be stubborn, Esme warned her that he'd destroy her if she ever hurt Bella. Now that he knows the girl's living with Bella's heart, he'll probably think Elaine is just like those people who betrayed Bella. But the heroine couldn't hide it anymore, racked with pain inside, and she was forced to confess that Bella died because of her. When she tried to free the witch, she was at death's door, and Elaine saved her by giving up her heart. Now Elaine lives with her heart, regretting every day that she couldn't protect her. After hearing that, the demon seemed to explode with unimaginable rage. He finally understood why she looked like that. Suddenly, that angry look changed to something warm. Actually, Esme didn't know all the details of that day, but he knew one thing. At least he didn't blame Elaine for it, because Bella cherished her so much that she gave her her heart. The heroine's tears hadn't even dried, when all of a sudden, someone's voice came from the woods. The demon wanted to hear more, but it would be difficult to continue talking with witnesses around. He suggested they talk about it next time, assuring her they'd meet again very soon. He promised to wait for her tomorrow at midnight at Everin Hill. Furthermore, Esme guessed that she was the one who dealt with that demon, the same culprit who committed the murders in Killyard. His hideout's deeper in the woods. This demon wanted all this stuff delivered to the witch's kid. Esme just vanished, like he was never even there. And then suddenly the Duke ran up, all freaked out. He'd been searching everywhere for her, Milady, and finally found her, saying she should have told him everything sooner. Chasing after a serial killer on your own is seriously dangerous, after all. Elaine said she just had to act fast. Seeing tears in her eyes, Rehei couldn't believe she was crying. She explained the tears by saying the perp threw dirt in her eyes when he was running away. Plus, the killer's a demon, not a human. Looks like he used magic to commit the crimes. Seeing the demon's neck snapped, the Duke knew it wasn't like Lady Elaine. The method was too brutal for her. When he asked her about it, the girl realized the truth would come out during the investigation. So, she said she was blinded by the dirt, and when she opened her eyes, the killer was already like that. She said the killer bumped into someone, but she didn't see who it was. Nothing we can do about it, they caught the guy, so the Duke suggested we drop it. Rehei was gonna join the knights and help move the body, leaving Milady to wait here. The next day, notices were plastered all over Killyard, saying the killer was caught. Worried folks could finally breathe again. But when they found out the killer was a demon, the air turned sour. Watching their reaction, the heroine thought about Esme, and bitterly waited for midnight. Right at midnight, she finally met him, throwing herself into his arms. He'd been waiting a long time. They didn't finish talking yesterday. He asked her to continue the story of Bella that Elaine started. Elaine told Esme everything about what happened, the tragedy of that day. There was someone controlling Bella, and most importantly, about her condition 20 years later. Everything, no exceptions. So, judging by what she said, Esme realized that Bella was messed up by someone's influence, but the girl didn't know who it was. Only that, from what she figured out, it was definitely someone from the royal family. Elaine understood Esme's anger and felt the same way, so she wanted to clear Bella's name as soon as possible. To do that, they first had to ID the culprit and find some damn proof. Once they agreed on that, the girl suddenly asked where Esme had been, and if he knew Rehei. Turns out, he wasn't in the capital that day. He was investigating a demon gate, which is why he arrived so late. By then, everything was ashes. No Bella, no Rehei, no Elaine. The demon couldn't find a single trace. He searched the palace thoroughly, but found nothing. Maybe Bella had cast a concealment spell on the girl. Esme only found out where Rehei was after a few days, but he never showed his face. He must have been hurting enough about what happened to Bella. It'll crush him if he learns his friend was a demon. Knowing Elaine was now his bodyguard, the demon wanted to see if Rehei even remembered she existed. Good thing he doesn't, and Milady really doesn't want her cover blown. She was scared the Duke would look down on her, finding out she lived with Bella's heart, since Bella died because of her. But like Esme said, Bella did everything she could to save her, so it's not Elaine's fault, but whoever's pulling the strings. It was so damn sad and lonely for her, not being able to tell anyone, but today she finally gets to spill it all. She doesn't even remember how much she cried that day, telling Esme what she'd been holding on to for so long, and they comforted each other. The next morning, Milady woke up, not even remembering what time she got back last night. Realizing she was a whole 3 hours late, she threw on some clothes and bolted out of the bedroom. Seeing her in his office doorway, the Duke didn't even seem to notice she was late, and just said he was looking for her. Turns out he wasn't even gonna scold her, 'cause it's a day off today. Rehei, wanting to ask her something, suggested they head south with him right away. Turns out the urgency was because the results of the crystal ball analysis were in. The mana analysis from the ball says her master's still alive, and he's in Wolfren Village, in the southern part of the continent. It quickly became clear that Talos wasn't there, where the mainland ended. The magic compass shows the trail leading further into the sea, so Elaine figured he went to another continent. Thinking Talos might be on an island near the continent, the compass signal started getting weaker. If he's on an island, it's not just any of the three, but the one at 12 o'clock, Noir Island. Deciding to take a boat, our heroes ran into trouble when the docks refused to launch one for them. The old sailor insisted that even if they asked someone else, they'd get the same answer. As for those ships out there, it's fine if they just stay close to the coast, but you can't get to Noir Island because of the Kraken that lives in these waters. The Kraken lives in the Purge Strait, which is the only way to Noir Island. Striped marlin schools come to spawn nearby this time of year, and marlin is the Kraken's favorite snack. In other words, going out there by boat right now is like serving yourself up as Kraken chow. I wouldn't exactly expect the Kraken to be able to tell a person from a marlin. Suddenly, Rehei de Feline introduced himself as the head of the Order of Phileia Knights from Killyard and presented his guards. Turns out, The sailor had already heard of that nightly order, the one that's rumored to be super strong. They're the strongest nightly order, having wiped out thousands of the toughest monsters. During the conversation, it came out that the sailor has been at sea for 40 years, and the boat he runs practically flies. The Duke was sure that meant he must know how to get around the Kraken's hunting grounds. A guy his age should be able to handle anything life throws at him, especially when he's sailing with 2 Felician knights. Sure, there are tricks to the trade, but so much can go wrong. And plus, those knights are useless at sea. That tough old sailor wouldn't budge, not even for double or 5 times the original price. It was only after agreeing to 10 times the agreed-upon fare that they finally shoved off from the dock. Just in case he died, the sailor asked the young guys to give the money to his wife and kids. Anyway, it's good they're finally heading out. If they make it, they might find a lead on Sir Walter. The heroes had to find Walter, no question, because Talos Asgard is alive. Meanwhile, using a crystal ball, Talos realized that someone was getting close. Soon, the heroes safely arrived at Noir Island. The sailor looked 10 years older, and they still had to get back. Time to hit the road now, leaving the old man at the harbor to wait for him. Meanwhile, back at the Magic Tower, things were getting crazy. Lately, they'd been swamped with missing persons cases. While the boss was busy handling things, he suddenly heard his assistant's frantic voice, yelling loud enough for the whole damn county to hear. Mr. Norton was speechless when he found out someone had broken into his office. He bolted upstairs and burst into his office, not understanding how this could have even happened. According to the assistant, the culprit had already vanished by the time they arrived. They just discovered someone was here. As Norton surveyed the office, he was certain whoever trashed the place had a specific goal in mind. And that's when he noticed the mission results were gone. What's more, only Duke Killiard's mission results were missing. Meanwhile, the compass signal definitely got stronger when they reached the island, so Talos has got to be somewhere around here. Then, out of nowhere, the compass went wild. Its light made it clear to the heroes that Talos was close. First things first, they decided to scope out the area, see if they could find anyone shady among the locals. When they spotted a dude in a black robe, the Duke pointed out that the compass was pointing in the same direction. So, the heroes made it their mission to tail the guy in the black hood. At some point, the chase led them to a dead end. The mysterious guy spotted them and straight up teleported away. Register took off like a shot, yelling at the girl to get the artifact and follow him. He pinpointed the target's location perfectly and jumped down, catching the hooded figure completely off guard. Trapped with those two, Talos couldn't figure out why his teleport wasn't working in this spot. Turns out they were using an artifact, so Talos Asgard couldn't teleport here. They finally found him. Knowing who he really was, Duke Feline told him not to do anything stupid and just surrender. The second the red-eyed guy held a knife to Asgard's throat, it was clear the heroes were too late. This is way worse than we thought. These guys are surrounded by a bunch of hardcore thugs. Black Hood grabbed Talos, told them to freeze, and swore he'd kill him if they moved. Whoever sent these guys, Rehei was sure they were way too confident they could take him down. No doubt the Duke's one hell of a guy, but they've got the one person he needs intel from. Right then, Rehist figured out that whoever hired them had a serious connection to Sir Walter. He decided to find out if Talos knew where Walter was, asking him to be straight with him. But on the flip side, the demon was threatening to off the guy if he said even one word. Realizing he was royally screwed, Talos didn't know these guys asking him about Sir Walter. Watching them interact with these killers, it doesn't look like they're on the same side. In the name of Lord Sir Walter, Rehei promised to keep him alive in exchange for an honest answer. When he heard he was his lord, Talos realized it was Register de Filion. Not being able to watch any longer, the assassin ordered his men to clear those two out of the house, now. In that instant, a decisive Talos used his magical firepower and sent flames roaring towards the attacker. Deciding to act, Duke Filion ordered his escort to deal with the ones outside. It only took him a couple of seconds to take down everyone who dared doubt his unstoppable knightly power. Just like he promised, he spared Talos's life, hoping for his honest heart. Throwing down his sword and kneeling before his lord, Register learned these people couldn't be killed. According to Talos, if they're just pawns or hired killers, we're not likely to get any info. But they're different. If they came to kill him, and it's a secret mission, then the palace must have sent them. We can get valuable intel by interrogating them. We can also use them as key witnesses. The reason the old man told you all this is because he's been wanting to meet Register for ages. Back then, Talos couldn't go looking for you, because he was afraid things would get too dangerous. Feeling like he should have apologized sooner, he blamed himself for Register having such a rough childhood. At those words, the Duke flipped out, grabbed the old man by the collar and told him to shut his yap. But he never imagined the truth Talos was apologizing for was that Sir Walter had died. The news that his mom wasn't to blame for the Seneca incident, and that it was all King Chelsea's doing, floored Rehei. The truth is, the king threatened to wipe out Talos's entire family if he didn't cooperate. Chelsea promised to accuse his family of treason and kill them all. It sounds like an excuse, but the old man had to save his family. After defeating the evil dragon, the magic circle made of eyes and blood harvested from its body was completed. That's how they subdued the witch, after which King Chelsea fled to the city he planned to make the new capital. Talos somehow managed to escape the scene, and now he could say for sure that Reheister's mother wasn't the mastermind behind Seneca's destruction. She was a victim of betrayal. Now the whole story's out, Chelsea's on the throne, and Reheister, the witch's son, is an enemy of the kingdom. The king never planned for them all to survive. Rehei lived because Sir Walter looked after him. That's why Talos wanted to tell the whole truth, to expose what really happened in Seneca, and to plan a revolution. Sir Walter's last words were a request for Talos to tell the story of the Seneca incident in his place. The Duke was having a meltdown listening to all this, laughing like a maniac, completely speechless. If Talos says Sir Walter is dead, then he needs to tell Reheister as soon as possible. But now, the Duke couldn't understand why Sir Walter died, why the Seneca incident happened, or why he survived, being such an idiot. Even if Talos died 100 times, he couldn't make up for what he's done. Dude was freaked, terrified King Chelsea would find out his sin and off him. He was kicking himself for not having the guts to spill the beans sooner. Rehei couldn't take hearing about forgiveness anymore. Not after hearing it a bunch of times, so he bolted. Elaine decided to go find him, but warned Talos not to pull any stupid crap. This time, she was ready to find him herself and tear him limb from limb. Remembering the letter before Milady left, the master asked it be delivered to His Highness. The heroine found the Duke by the blue ocean shore, shimmering softly under the clear moonlight. The wind's biting, so she said she booked a room at the hotel and sent the captain there. Actually, Rehei wanted to stay put a bit longer, telling her she should head back first. So Milady decided to hang with him for a bit too, handing over the letter right away. This is Sir Walter's last will and testament, written just before he met with Talos. Before writing to Register de Filion, Walter wanted to offer his apologies. The fact that your grace is reading this means the moment has come when Walter can no longer help you. He was about to meet with Talos Asgar, who will also tell you the truth about the Seneca incident. What happened that day wasn't Bella's fault, because she was a witch who truly loved people. Walter believed her, and he begs Register to believe her too, and to stop blaming her, or himself. The Duke must learn the truth and punish those responsible for this tragedy. Do it for Walter. Hill will always support you. Attached to this letter, the knight has also compiled a list of His Highness Lloyd's close associates who can assist. And lastly, Walter apologized for not being able to protect the young Duke until the very end. With great respect, he asked that his apologies be conveyed to his son and daughter, and told Register to keep moving forward. Turns out that goodbye they said at the city gates back when they were kids was the last one. If the young master only knew, he never would have sent Walter. Tears welled up in Elaine's eyes. She was crying because Rehei wasn't. He's always been so strong, but right now, he looks totally wiped. Thinking about why he was hurting so bad, and how many more wounds he'd get, Elaine wished she could take all his pain away. It's seriously weird. This whole thing has nothing to do with her, and Rehei couldn't figure out why she was hurting so much for him. When he looked at this girl, it felt like he'd become someone important to her. Just like she said, the captain was exhausted. He just wanted to stand there and hug for a second. Even though she couldn't find the right words to say, she let him lean on her and rest for a bit in that moment. The next day, Reheister and Elaine returned to Killiard together, along with Talos and the captured assassins. Rexether interrogated the assassins and made them spill about their connection to Chelsea. They testified on the condition they got off the continent. Talos also handed over crucial files related to the Seneca incident, all proving Chelsea's betrayal. He also promised to make a public statement about the Seneca incident later. When the king found out the Duke kidnapped the mage and dared to grab the assassins, he knew the mission was a bust. Chelsea wanted to execute the servant, but decided to spare his life for another job. That bastard ended up figuring everything out. Terrified the truth would come out and it'd all be over, His Majesty decided to make the first move. That's when he ordered Killiard wiped off the map, so there wouldn't be a trace left. Chelsea was ready to bury Rexether alive, along with the truth about that day, if he dared to cross him. When it came out that the whole Seneca incident was the king's doing, Lord Lovell couldn't believe it. And because of that, His Grace has been putting up with this humiliation. He was just as shocked. This insane power grab got the whole royal family killed, his parents murdered and disgraced. Reading his father's will, Hilla couldn't hold back the tears. Deep down, she knew something like this had happened. She'd pictured this moment a million times, bracing herself for his death. But finding out he died like this? It's the worst, a truly devastating loss. Lady Hilla couldn't forgive the king either. She couldn't let the truth about her father's life being cut short be buried. That's why Lavelle believed they needed to prepare thoroughly and reveal the truth they uncovered to the world. Planning to do just that, Rehester intended to first show these documents to his father's close associates on this list. Most of the people on the list are nobles who suffered after the Seneca incident for supporting Rehester's father. And there's also a guy who was called his close friend, but it's unknown if he's still alive. Either way, this fight will be unlike anything before, and our heroes could pay with their lives. Duke Feline didn't want to force anyone, but this time, they've got to risk it all to help him out. Register's people, totally and completely loyal, agreed to jump in. Super grateful, Register gave him his thanks, promising he wouldn't let him down. That night, Marquis Dirk, a supporter of the ex-crown prince Lloyd de Fillion, was thinking about him while knocking back some booze. When the butler came to call him for dinner, he saw the Marquise was at it again. The servant warned him that nothing good would come of drinking every single day instead of just now and then. Plus, that booze was supposed to be for His Majesty, so now he didn't know what to do. Every year they barely scrape by, supplying the best wine while staying out of favor. The Marquis is risking getting wiped out. But he didn't give a damn, even if it meant being on bad terms with that unlucky king. If only His Highness Lloyd was still alive, he would have been a way smarter king than the one we got now. Out of nowhere, the maid barges in, saying some dude showed up at this hour but didn't give a name. The Marquise thought it was weird that someone hiding their name wanted a secret meetup. Even hammered, he decided to go, not wanting to waste time on someone who's already being disrespectful. After getting the okay to enter, Duke de Fillion threw back his black hood and asked if Marquis Dirk recognized him. Looking at him, the guy was thrown for a loop, but definitely knew it was Duke Killiard. They're meeting like this for the first time, and Rehester came because he heard rumors about the Marquis, about Marquis Dirk, who was revered 20 years ago, and now he's just scraping by. Rehester came to restore his honor, but Dirk had no clue how he could possibly get his old glory back. He claimed the whole reason this happened to him in the first place was that witch killed His Highness Lloyd. Hearing that, the Duke dared to suggest it wasn't his mother's fault. Everyone thinks the witch is to blame for the Seneca incident, but that's totally wrong. The Marquis went pale as a ghost, sweat beading on his forehead, when he found out King Chelsea killed Rehester's parents. After asking him to read the document, the Duke pleaded for his help, hoping he'd understand what was at stake. After their talk, Elaine was unsure if they could trust the Marquis, fearing he'd spill their plans to the king. Rehester reassured her, saying Dirk was his father's loyal comrade and is now at odds with the current king. Since he agreed to help, all they can do is trust him. Fact is, he still remembers and is loyal to Lloyd. The chance of betrayal is pretty slim. Figuring the girl was exhausted from working all night, the captain told her to get some proper rest. So, ditching the dark thoughts, she decided to focus on finding allies. Just then, a happy shout echoed. Overjoyed to see her, Lady Sophia threw her arms around her. Suzanne's here too, super curious why it's been so damn hard to see Lady Elaine lately. Yeah, it's been a while, hasn't it? His Grace has been swamped with stuff recently. So, Sophie just casually throws out there, wondering if anything special happened between her and His Grace. Suzanne's like, nah, nothing weird going on. We just think they have a good boss-employee thing happening. Then Suzanne and Sophie told her to hit them up if she ever needs anything, you know? Before leaving, Elaine tells them to come to her anytime if they ever have problems. So the guys are thinking nothing's happened yet, but they definitely picked up on some weird vibes. Maybe the Duke of Killiard and his bodyguard just haven't figured out their feelings yet, you know?